Call our regular meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Council Agency Member Rouget. Here. Lingle. Here. Durham. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Vice Chair Martner. Here. Mayor Chair Szymanski.
Here. Oral communications. If there's anybody at this time that would like to speak to us on any matter, only on the items on the closed session. Seeing no one want to speak to us on that, we'll then move to into closed session. And don't bother to sit down. You got an hour, Bob. We'll be back. Meeting back to order. We started this evening's meeting an hour ago, went into a closed session. We'll report on that in just a few minutes. We had roll call at that time. We'll now open the session and ask Mr. Bernie Fetterman come forward to lead us in the invocation. Please stand.
Our gracious God, all that we have and are is a result of your generosity. And while in these days many focus on lack, we ask you to help us to focus on you and the needs of others. Help us to focus on what is left and not what is lost. Allow us to make the most of opportunities before us, to leverage our influence for the good of others, and to add value to our community and its citizens, and not simply for selfish gain. May you provide us with listening ears, open hearts to one another, and open souls to your wisdom, to know what is right and the courage to do it. Where doors have closed and windows have shut, provide a tenacity to find solutions to our problems and to refrain from being a part of the problems ourselves. Give our leaders and our citizens creative minds and the bravery to move towards that which will bring change. Comfort those in our community who desire to work and cannot find employment. May you provide for them, and may you work through all of us in doing so. We pray this night for our elected officials, our nation's leaders, our state leaders, and for the leaders in this room who seek to govern our city to the best of their abilities. Protect those who protect and watch over us, our police, our fire personnel, our military all over the world, especially those downrange and in harm's way. May you help those who speak this night, those who listen, and those who must make decisions during this meeting and in the days to come. We thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Please follow me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seated. Action taken in closed session. Would you?
Thank you, Mayor. The two items were in closed session. One was negotiations with the Police Officers Association. There's nothing to report out. And with regard to the anticipated litigation, there's a proposed discussion of a settlement and a approval to authorize an expenditure of $495,000 to continue the process of getting the wastewater system up and running.
Thank you. This time we move into presentations. And I have a proclamation declaring this Park and Recreation Month. Like this with Catherine. And Mario and Joanne. This is a proclamation declaring this Park and Recreation Month 2010. Whereas Parks and Recreation makes lives and communities better now and in the future, 98% of California households indicated they visited a local park at least once in the last year, most often with family and friends. And whereas parks provide access to the serenity and the inspiration of nature and outdoor spaces to play and to exercise, they offer places and programs to facilitate social connections, human development, therapy, the arts, and lifelong learning. And whereas parks preserve and protect the historic, natural, and cultural resources in our community. And whereas recreation presents positive alternatives for children and youth during non-school hours to reduce crime and mischief, thereby helping children and youth develop and grow into healthy and productive adults. And whereas Park and Recreation provides the opportunity for directed and self-directed activities which encourage healthy movements. And whereas local children, adults, and seniors benefit from the wide range of services, facilities, and programs such as the 4th of July fireworks show, the Movies in the Park program, the aquatic programs, and recreation activities provided by the Lompoc Parks, Recreation, and Urban Forestry Department. Now therefore, I, Michael Szymanski, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim July as Park and Recreation Month in the City of Lompoc, and urge all residents to recognize and enjoy the social, physical, mental, economic, environmental, and community benefits derived from our parks and recreation services and programs, which provide something of value to everyone. I put my name in witness to this on the 6th day of July, 2010. I'd like to present this to you, Dan. Sure. I want to thank you, staff, if you'll introduce them, and I'm sure you have some comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Commission and your staff, we thank you for your continued support and for the opportunity to continue to provide this fine community. With me tonight, I have my recreation managers, Joanne Plummer and Mario Guerrero. These are both my right arms, so if you can imagine what I'd be without them. Our department is very small, but we're very mighty in what we do. We take great pride in what we do because this community means a lot to us. With that said, our very busy summer is well underway. Whether you're at the Aquatic Center, you're out on a ball field, you're at Summer Drop-In, or many of the other programs that we have, we encourage you to participate, but we also encourage you to take that passive time to go out into the parks, whether it's at Kiwanis Lake, do a little fishing, make sure you get your license, or whether it's to sit under a tree to enjoy the cool breeze and the beautiful environment that we call the Lompoc Valley. With that, once again, we thank you. Please come out. July is Parks and Recreation Month, but we embrace it as July is 1 month. We do all 12 months, and they're all very important to us as well. On that note, I thank you.
There is a second proclamation tonight, and Chief Dabney is going to come forward to present a commendation.
Had to make sure she was here. Well, before I get started, I would also like to mirror the comments of the Parks and Rec Department because we have our junior police camp, our second session of the summer underway. So if you see young people out in the courtyard screaming and yelling in police uniforms, that's what they're doing. What brings me here this evening is a recommendation for commendation that was provided by the District Attorney's Office as well as Officer Clancy's supervisor and her division commander. So if I could have Officer Tammy Clancy come up and join me at the podium. We prepared this commendation for Officer Clancy pursuant to her investigative abilities, and it goes like this. On Thursday, October 16th, 2008, at 3:30 a.m., documented gang members armed with a firearm, a baseball bat, and disguised with masks broke into a home of a rival gang member to commit robbery. The female resident was strangled and sexually assaulted in a most brutal manner in the presence of young children. Investigators of the Lompoc Police Department responded with tremendous determination and apprehended one of the perpetrators of this horrific crime within 24 hours. Detective Tammy Clancy was assigned to facilitate the physical examination of the victim, along with other members of the SART team, which is the Sexual Assault Response Team. Because Detective Clancy had established a positive rapport with the victim and the children who were present during the assault, as well as her impressive expertise, she was designated as the lead investigator in the case. Detective Clancy and Detective De Laredes jointly interviewed the suspects, resulting in a confession by one and a false alibi by the other. Detective Clancy sifted through hundreds of pieces of evidence and correspondence related to the case in order to demonstrate guilt on the part of both suspects at trial. The trial, with two impaneled juries, one trial, began on February 9th, 2010, and lasted over 4 weeks. Detective Clancy served as the investigating officer assisting the Deputy District Attorney assigned to prosecute the case, and Detective Clancy spent countless hours preparing evidence and testimony so that it could be presented in a logical fashion to the two juries. Deputy District Attorney Megan Ross stated that Clancy was, quote, a powerful and credible witness for the people and painted a clear picture of what happened for the juries. She also said that Detective Clancy's dedication and heart made this case happen. Both defendants in this case were convicted of burglary, robbery, rape, and a litany of other charges and special allegations. One of the men convicted in this crime is a career criminal and among some of the worst that any officer will encounter over the course of his or her career. His string of depraved and violent crimes, whenever he wasn't in custody, have victimized the Lompoc residents for well over a decade. He was sentenced to 96 years in state prison. The second defendant was sentenced to 61 years to life for his involvement in this terrible crime. Lompoc is a safer place today because of the efforts of Detective Clancy and her cohorts on the investigative team. Her tremendous effort and attention to detail in this case were nothing short of extraordinary and worthy of the highest praise. Therefore, Officer Clancy is hereby commended for her outstanding service to the City of Lompoc as a detective of the Lompoc Police Department, and thank you for a job exceptionally well done. I guess she had enough testimony. Is Megan here? Megan here? Okay. Captain Ralston, would you like to add anything? Is he here? Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. We'll move on to the City Administrator, the Executive Director's status report, and any staff requests and announcements.
Mr. Mayor and council members, there is one item on tonight's staff report, and it's Community Development Director Arlene Pelster and Planning Manager Lucille Breeze provided a report on the general plan update prepared by Rincon Consultants dated July 1, noting 2 Planning Commission public hearings were held in June to consider a recommendation to Council on the final environmental impact report and the Phase 1 draft elements, the circulation, housing, and land use elements. Further discussions by the Commission is scheduled for Wednesday, July 14th at 6:30 p.m. in the Council chambers. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to inform the City Council and the public of a change the City has made to notify our utility customers of final turnoff notices for non-payment of utility bills effective July 1. Historically, we have utilized door hangers placed 2 days prior to disconnecting utility services for non-payment. We have changed from this method to mailing final notices to customers, giving at least 2 business days to either make utility payments or set up payment arrangements. Staff began notifying customers of this change in May and continued to provide notification through June. In addition, notification was provided with utility bills, and 2 announcements appeared in the Lompoc record on June 30th and July 1st. This new practice will not only eliminate customers' complaints about the presence of door hangers signaling to others that they are either not home or behind on their payments, but also saves approximately 60 hours per month in staff time for meter reading personnel. As council is aware, we reduced the number of positions performing the meter reading and related work from 6 to 4 full-time employees with the adoption of the fiscal year 2009-11 biennial budget. And staff would like to take this opportunity to commend Utility Director Ron Stassi for identifying and implementing these procedural changes, realizing gained efficiencies. I would also like to take this opportunity to advise council that Deputy City Clerk Stacy Alvarez is sitting in for tonight's meeting for City Clerk Donna Toronis. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the report from the City Administrator? Seeing none, we'll move on to council or agency requests and announcements. Ms. Rouget?
I just wanted to add my thanks to the Parks and Rec Department for the glorious 4th of July celebration we had on Sunday. Thanks to the San Ynez Band of Chumash Indians who supplied the funds for the beautiful fireworks show, but I think the staff did an excellent job. They were there, as I understand it, from 7 o'clock in the morning to about midnight afterwards, setting up and cleaning up. And I think everybody who was there in the stadium had a wonderful time, and I wanted to really thank you all for doing such a great job. It was an excellent show, and we'll try and do it again next year, with or without the Chumash Indians.
Thank you, Ms. Rouget. Mr. Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, I'm sure most of you know that the new Lompoc Valley Community Center Hospital opened this past week, and I just wanted to, I'm employed by the hospital as well, and I just wanted to mention to the community, your tax dollars, your bond dollars are being spent very wisely. It's a beautiful facility. If you're not able to attend one of the open houses, I hope you don't have to attend as a patient, but it's a beautiful facility. It's opened, and thank you very much for your bond money for that hospital. The community should be very proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Durham.
Well, like Councilmember Roger stated, Parks and Rec did a fantastic job for the fireworks, and I can't thank the Chumash Band of Indians enough, because it was maybe only 25 minutes long, but it was phenomenal. If you missed it, you missed a great show. There were so many people out there too that helped, in the course of the day, but that event couldn't happen without the combined effort of so many different organizations as well as Park and Recreation. So everyone that was involved in that, I truly want to give you my thanks. Just to let you know, speaking of Parks and Recs, the Parks and Recreation Department is having an audition. It's called Rising Stars, and it's age grouped between 8 and 22. The first tryout is tomorrow. The second one is July 14th, and the actual contest is on July 24th. There's a fee of $5 to participate, but if you think you have talent, I won't give them my money. I know I don't. So, but I may attend just to see how it goes. But if you're interested in the talent show, either participating or getting some more information on it, just contact the Parks and Recreation Department. The last thing I have that I want to speak about is on July 10th. We've talked about this now for almost a month. We're going to have the graffiti and trash pickup here in the city. The location for the meet has been changed. It was going to be at the Lompoc Police Department in the back parking lot. Now it's going to be at the Lompoc High School parking lot. It's going to go from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, and we're going to hit all the graffiti and pick up the trash. And I would love to see, I've heard estimates anywhere from 200 to 500. If you're concerned about this community and the way it looks, everybody out here should be out there with a cup of coffee in your hand at 8 o'clock in the morning with me and go around taking care of business. It's a great way to show support for the community. It's a great way to let the community know that you do care. And it's a great way for people to come in and see, my gosh, they did what? So come out and support the program. And if you have any questions about that program, like I said, it's on the 10th, but if you contact the police department, I'm sure that they'll assist you with that. Most of the churches in the city are involved in that. So it's a great thing. So come out and support the community.
Thank you. Ms. Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to add on to the July 10th. I understand there will be a barbecue here at City Hall at one point in time. So after, oh no, there is not. Oh, it's going to be at the high school. Anyway, I encourage everybody, please attend. Let's clean up this city. We really need to clean it up. And after the work, we can go for a barbecue at the high school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A couple of comments. There's a lot happened since our last council meeting. Sad note, a beautiful smile and a very friendly face is missing in the lobby of City Hall. We lost one of our own, Karina Al-Rabadi, died unexpectedly. Those of you that had occasion to come to City Hall will notice that that big smile is missing. We also lost a firefighter out on Vandenberg. We've got a special relationship with the Vandenberg Fire Department. They back us up quite often when there's multiple calls in town, and our sincere best wishes go out to the family and the firefighters on the base. I don't remember a short period of time where there have been as many police, highway patrol killed in accidents in the last couple of weeks. There have been, I think, 5 alongside the road where they've stopped just traffic stops to check out an abandoned car or to pull somebody over. It's worth noting that our officers and the peace officers statewide take that risk with every routine action that they take during the day. And this last couple of weeks has certainly demonstrated what they put how they put their lives on line. On a positive side, it's been mentioned the fireworks, and they were a great program. But a week before that, we had a flower festival in the community, and a committee that put that together deserves a lot of credit. It's a terrific program, an awful lot of time and effort, and I think one of the biggest tributes to the quality of the program is that we have youth bands from Orange County, from Pasadena, from Compton, from Long Beach that are willing to bus up here and serve in our parade. We have hundreds and thousands of people in the park, great food, great artwork, great rides, great entertainment, and a great afternoon. And the committee that puts that on are probably just now starting to recover and wake up from the 2 weeks rest that they well deserved. And then next week they'll start planning next year's flower festival. But they, as well as and I had comments on the fireworks further, but it's all been said. So there's been a lot going on in the community, and I think some of those are worth noting. At this time, we come to the period for public comment. It's your opportunity to speak to us on items that are on the agenda, if you choose. If we would prefer you wait until the item comes up later on in the evening on the agenda, because we'd like to hear what you have to say at the time we're deliberating and considering that item. But if you can't stay and there's items later on in the evening, you'd like to come forward now, we welcome you. If you want to talk about any other items that relative to city business, it's your opportunity to do so. And we have a timer. We'll ask you to watch that. I notice that there is a group here tonight. If you're all saying about the same thing, I would hope you have a spokesperson, and maybe you could all stand that agree instead of keeping us here until 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night hearing from each one of you on the same items. But it is your opportunity to speak to us. If anyone would like to come forward.
I have handouts here for the council for what I'm going to say. I think I have 5 minutes. My name is Joe White, and I've been a citizen of Lompoc for over 20 years. Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and fellow citizens, I come this evening with growing reservations concerning the proposed expansion of Walmart, increasing its size by approximately 40%. At this time, I encourage City Council to consider adopting Alternative 1 in the executive summary of the City of Lompoc's Walmart expansion project draft environmental impact report. Alternative 1 states in part, quote, "The site is left in its present condition. The project, the expansion, is not approved." As you can see, council members, there are a number of citizens here who share this view. We are an eclectic group representing a wide range of citizens. Our reservations regarding this problematic 40% expansion are many and diverse. Let me share just 3 of my reservations. First, Lompoc has undergone much deep change over the past decade. We have just proudly celebrated the opening of our new hospital, which has been years in planning and construction. It boasts state-of-the-art interior design, local artworks, construction, and medical technologies. Its highly trained professional staff bring so much to the quality of life in our community. Lompoc is now widely regarded, and with some pride throughout Santa Barbara County, as a regional destination for world-class wines. By 2013, the proposed California Space Center will hopefully begin drawing numerous visitors to our community curious about space exploration, education, careers, and the significant historical role the Lompoc Valley has played in America's civilian military space program. While our community performing arts center remains in its conceptual stage, it is nonetheless a wonderful conception, with stunning blueprints and high expectations for Old Town and our entire community. Our Allen Hancock College campus is a busy center for higher education training. Lompoc is on a trajectory of higher education, professionalism, and a celebration of our local history and culture. So how does the world's largest, cheapest, most sued discount corporate chain, Walmart, fit into this picture? If our city had an economic development plan, something many citizens have been pushing and waiting for years, this problematic Walmart expansion would be a simple community no thank you. My second reservation concerns the first project objective listed in the EIR to, quote, maximize affordable grocery shopping options for residents of the city and the immediate surrounding area. Reading the IRL summary, you find this first objective discussed under urban decay. Under urban decay, it states, quote, the supermarket trade area of Lompoc would be overbuilt by approximately 59,000 square feet. So if Walmart proposes to add 41,433 square feet, doesn't it follow that we are presently overbuilt by roughly 17,000 square feet? Aren't we presently maxed out? Lompoc does not need Walmart's extra 41,000 square feet. According to the EIR, if this problematic Walmart expansion does overbuild our area, that could, quote, cause one of the existing supermarkets in Lompoc to close. In the American Journal of Agriculture, a study found that Walmart grocery chains in non-metropolitan areas tended to replace 2 existing average supermarkets. All of these studies were apparently conducted under non-recession times. We are now in a deep, protracted recession, leaving all retail fragile. Lompoc has one of the highest unemployment rates in Santa Barbara County. Could we lose even more than 2 average-sized supermarkets? What if we lose the Vons on West Ocean Avenue as we, the city, simultaneously prepare to invest over $8 million in a new community center there? Does our new community center end up in a vacated, dilapidated strip mall? An MIT study concludes that the popular view, big drives out small, does so with an average loss of 23.8% of small retail stores. My third and final reservation, if I may, is a worst-case scenario due to local versus corporate asymmetrical values in terms of economics. Essentially, with this proposed expansion of Walmart, that store will become much more valuable to Lompoc than it is to corporate global Walmart, with its $300 billion plus in sales annually. In the EIR under air quality, one mitigation condition reads, quote, the Walmart building in Lompoc shall be equipped with an energy management system that is monitored and controlled from the home office in Bentonville, Arkansas, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What if someone in Bentonville, Arkansas decides, perhaps rightly for them, that Lompoc is no longer economically viable in their global billion-dollar empire? Bentonville simply abruptly closes this little store. Lompoc is left bereft of local retail and economic vitality. Walmart is a monstrous, very smart, calculating, single-minded, devoid of local loyalty global corporation whose profit models also assume local population growth. Lompoc grew last year by 0.6%. Is that enough for Walmart's growing presence and profits? Please, council members, be neither intimidated nor seduced by a distant corporate giant to expand in our community, discount cheap imports, cheap wages from one of the largest and most sued corporations in the world. Our community of arts and flowers thinks professional, educational, local. Thank you.
All right. Let me ask how many here tonight want to speak on this subject? About 6 of you. I think. Okay, let's move ahead. We're going to watch that light real quickly, and if it starts running longer than that, I'm going to cut the time to speak down to 3 minutes or maybe even 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Robert Cuthbert, citizen of Lompoc. I got some information here, which includes CDs and some substantial research. I'd also like to say that I've been to city council meetings up and down the Central Coast in the last several years, and this city council traditionally, and as we see today, is one of the most tolerant when it comes to public speakers. And as someone who will hopefully be here in December, I'd like to say, let's watch the lights, let's make our points, not be redundant, and let the city council get on with its business. But the reason we're here today is because this is a very important issue, probably one of the most significant economic issues to face our community in years and years. So let me just read briefly from the letter that's inside the folder. The ad hoc, and this is addressed to the city council and also our city administrator, who should get a packet too. The ad hoc citizens committee that is opposed to the expansion plans of the existing Walmart store are focused on simple economic facts. They should not be dismissed as naysayers nor the puppets of outside interests. The expansion is primarily for greater grocery floor space. Even according to the recent draft EIR, we find that Lompoc is already overbuilt. And that was already mentioned before, but it just exasperates the situation. In economic terms, grocery stores compete for market share. That competition is for limited consumer dollars in a limited area. Walmart's expanding into grocery does not expand that market. It redistributes market share only. With that redistribution, jobs are lost in one area and gained in another. As consumer dollars are limited, the net gain in employment opportunities is limited as well. Rather than rely on anecdotal facts, I would ask you to rely on the substantial research to date. I have included several academic researches, 2 articles, full documents, and several files on disk. Also, there are 2 links to internet videos. I know you have nothing but the best interests of the community at heart, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Cuthbert. Those of you that want to speak, I'll ask you to line up so that we don't spend a lot of time waiting between speakers.
My name is Stephen Lee, 1204 North Bean, Lompoc. I also oppose the expansion of Walmart, and because some of the other points have already been brought up. The concern I've got is the industrial land that would be used up to make this expansion. We already gave up 125 acres, I think, of industrial land to build the thing in the first place. That was the subject of the special election a few years ago. And I think it'd be a mistake to give up any more industrial land. You'd probably have to rezone it. And if we want good paying jobs in town, you know, that's the best way to get it is industrial jobs. I sat on the overall economic development plan committee a few years ago, and the turnover of high wage jobs, the money as it goes through the economy, is, I think it was $100 to one, you know, as it filtered through. So with that, I'll turn over the mic to other people, but I hope that you, when it comes up for a vote, that you disapprove the project.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Harry Kime. I live in Lompoc, California, 422 South F Street. I too oppose the Walmart expansion. Walmart's expansion cannot and should not cause the loss of other jobs, and that is unacceptable. Beyond all the rhetoric, I have not heard anyone in support of Walmart say they care about those who stand to lose their jobs if they get their expansion. What I'm asking for is humanistic value here. The value that says, and Lompoc has that value that no one else has, no other city has. We all care about each other. So I want to make that point. If they get their expansion. Instead, they maneuver into a position of a stance against our concerned citizens, which is the Citizens Against Walmart Expansion group, creating a negative environment. Their contempt for other hardworking members of society is a real concern and needs to be considered. I have faith that our city government will make the right decisions, which reflects concern for those who are employed in other businesses beyond Walmart. The Citizens Against the Walmart Expansion is not against the existing store. We are concerned that if the city allows an expansion, it will cause a repeat of damage seen already in the past. Walmart's place is to provide cheap goods, affordable name brands, and starter jobs. And I do mean starter jobs, not jobs that people could rely on at the end of their lives where they make a living and make a retirement. They don't provide that to our town. And I think that's a real issue that deserves looking at. The store, as existing, is all this community needs. They should not be allowed to grow to the point of even greater detriment. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kine.
Honorable Mayor and honorable members of the council and members of the public. I'm Dr. Charles Edward Blair. I reside at 176 Alcor Avenue in Vandenberg Village, which is considered part of the valley. I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Paso Robles. Lompoc is much more like the Paso Robles I grew up with, and I believe I understand the community mentality and the system. Some of the benefits accrued for the star is availability of affordable groceries and increased job responsibility. We already have low-cost retail grocery space. There is the Foods Co., which is low-cost one, and some of the local merchants have low costs. The other is jobs. I have not done extensive internet research. I went to one of the local grocerymen and got some hard data about local information. The West Lompoc, the West Ocean Avenue Vons. I spoke with Mr. Jules Haynes, a gentleman who was born and raised in this town and has been in the retail business for some time. Anyway, the 38 if the West Ocean Avenue closes, 38 jobs will be lost. These 38 people who have a starting salary of $18 an hour with benefits would be then displaced into the system. Albertson has 80 employees. Foodsco has 75. These $18 an hour with full benefits would be replaced probably by entry level, as I said, entry level at around $8 an hour without benefits. So I think the economic value of lower merchandise and the jobs, I think, are illusory. And again, I think they've talked about the Lompoc is already pretty well close to being overbuilt. So I would support the people that have spoken before me that Walmart is doing good for the city. I think it would be better served to continue at its present level, and I thank you and the general public for your attention.
Hello, Honorable Mayor and Honorable Council members and the public. My name is Rosemary Holmes, long-term resident of Lompoc, and I'm going to speak very briefly on two issues that bother me among the myriad ones I could have chosen. One is traffic. This is something addressed in the EIR, but they don't address it as firmly as I would have, where I'm in the process of writing that. H Street is already unbearable. The exhaust from traffic is not nice. The long waits at traffic lights is not nice. Do we need it? Walmart's very success would be the community's failure in this term, because the stream of traffic, especially from Highway 246 up that street, would really be a problem. The other one I'm going to address is not a local problem, but a global one. And it's one that some of us know, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Walmart is a monster. They're a real Goliath. They've set the bar standard for business practices so low a caterpillar couldn't climb under it. They're cruel. Their practice is to hire, they don't use American goods, they go to the poorest countries in the world and employ people. For instance, typically a factory in China, people making $3 a day, working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, living in places we wouldn't put our pets in. This is not nice. Do we really need to buy into this? This is a company that's big enough, they could set higher standards. They don't. I think it's a matter of local and community pride that we do not buy into this by letting them expand further. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. All right, please.
Greg Jenkins. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and the public. I'm going to piggyback on what Rosemary said, and that's pride, because we've talked about a lot of things that we are very proud of in this community, such as our fireworks show, and then also the annual events that occur here, the new hospital, things of that nature. And so my appeal is that we've got to support small business, because that gives the community the option, other than Walmart, to be able to spend their dollars. And my contention is that is, I think we would be showing our community a lot of pride, and they would have that option other than to spend dollars at Walmart. Because if you had the option to spend maybe $1 more or $2 more to support a retail store in Lompoc, then some of us, I think, would do that, because that would be supporting our small retail businesses. But if we only have the overwhelming option of Walmart, then we're just going to be going into Walmart. They're going to be providing that one-stop shopping. You go in, you buy clothes, you buy food, you buy everything there, and then you go home. So I'm contending that that has a negative impact on the growth of small business in Lompoc. So it does, to me, in my opinion, amount to a pride issue in Lompoc. Let's make sure that we offer our community, we got a new hospital. We take pride in the men and women at Vandenberg Air Force Base. We take pride in that fireworks show. We take pride in our schools. We've got to have another option for retail business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, I ask you not to applaud, please.
Hi, my name's Jeannie Duggar. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I had to join my compadre from Paso Robles. I am from Paso Robles. I've seen what Walmart did to your community, what it did to mine. And basically, it's not that I hate Walmart. I just don't think they do a lot for small communities. They don't help grow small business. They don't help grow the engine of small communities. But the biggest problem I think you have in dealing with this issue from a fiscal point of view is this. If you allow that expansion of 41,000 square feet into grocery, you're allowing 41,000 square feet of non-city revenue generating space because food is non-taxable, and that's what they're bringing into that space. However, the grocery stores that will close, and I guarantee you, you will lose the West Ocean bonds. Formerly a Williams Brothers, I worked for Williams Brothers. I grew up with small town grocers, got bought twice. I've been through the corporate mayhem, been through the whole thing. But you will lose that store. I guarantee it. It's losing money now. They're keeping it open for the benefit of the community on this side of town. They won't be able to sustain it with the sales they'll lose at the H Street store. You're going to lose a lot of employees at the Foods Co. You'll probably lose the Foods Co. It's direct competition. But you're going to lose something else. You're going to lose tax revenue because people don't just buy groceries at grocery stores. They go in to get groceries and they pick up all those other taxable items like diapers, like paper goods, like soap. If they buy it all at Walmart and their food, you're going to lose that excess revenue you get from the grocery stores. And you're going to have a net tax cost of having a huge behemoth store there with the traffic mitigation problems and everything else. Look what happened in Paso Robles. It cost us $10 million to build a bridge to Walmart to fix the problem we created. So think long and hard because the impacts are going to be very, very long term. And this is a neat town. I don't want to see it wrecked. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lynn, are you want to speak on this subject? Or, okay. Are there anybody else that want to speak on this subject? After that, we'll allow those that may want to speak on other subjects to come up also. Mr. Lynn, sorry.
No problem, Mayor. Thank you. John Lynn, City of Lompoc. I don't think there's any question in anyone who's been here's mind that Walmart put a dent in the small business community. I could make a list of all the people that were closed out. But I don't think that's really the issue. The issue is that the citizens of Lompoc voted for that Walmart. I didn't vote for it, but the rest of the citizens did, and we're a government of the majority. Now, I feel bad that I didn't do a better job of campaigning because I thought it wasn't going to pass. That's water under the bridge. But the citizens of Lompoc approved that Walmart in that shape based on the promises that Walmart made. If Walmart wishes to change what they sold the citizens of Lompoc, then they need to go back to the ballot. I don't believe this council should change what the citizens voted for. So if Walmart wishes to expand, then it needs to go back to the citizens, and the citizens can again make that decision and either say, yes, that's what we want, or no, we don't want that. I feel very strongly about that. I think that's really the best solution. I am concerned on a separate note that we have neither the police and surely not the fire personnel to service that facility. And when I was doing research in preparation for writing a note for the EIR, I noticed that a number of Walmart locations in the country did not have what we would consider catastrophic fires, but they had small smoky fires that caused the facility need to be evacuated. If that happened today, we would be able to send 2 people into the building, and if county wasn't busy, they could send 2 people in. That's not adequate for the size of the building that we have now, and it would surely be inadequate for a much larger building. So those are just some thoughts. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lynn. All right. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak now on any other subject?
Dulcie Sin, resident. Mayor and City Council members, I wanted to comment on something that's in the consent calendar, please. And it's item number 4 about the approval of the agreement with the Lompoc Unified School District for the use of the Civic Auditorium and the Lompoc Valley Middle School athletic fields. I live over by Lompoc Valley Middle School, and I just wanted to bring to your attention that on Olive Street, right by South M, you know, here's the handball courts, there used to be an opening in the gate there that adults and kids and occasional dog could open it wide enough to get through. For some reason, the school district has been chaining that gate so tightly shut that people who want to use the handball court have made big holes in the fence. Now, I've called the Unified School District and I've asked them to please loosen up the chain, allow people to go through that, because then they wouldn't be ripping the fence down. I know the broken window scenario where, you know, you've got the broken window and then people break more windows. Well, you've got a hole in the fence and now the fence is getting even more torn apart. And so I was just hoping that perhaps you could make a note of it and mention to them that people should have access through that gate to particularly the handball courts. And the handball courts do get used a great deal. I see a lot of families out there, mainly, you know, older men and young kids, and it's a lot of handball playing out there, and it always seems like it's a good time, but it must be very tough for a dad to show up with his son and have to sneak through the fence or hand the kid through the hole in the fence to the other kid. So that's all. I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and perhaps we could mention it when we're working that agreement out. Thank you.
I'm not going to question the school district's security plan.
Mayor and Council, I also had a comment or a question on consent item number 5. I have questions, so I don't know whether you want to pull it for later or how you'd like to do that, but I have some questions on it.
Well, if we had questions on it, we came down and asked them during the day so that we could address it tonight. It is somewhat routine. Unless someone on the council wants to pull it and debate it later on tonight, if we've answered our questions, it's here as an agenda item for us to take. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak at this time?
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Beth Christensen, and I live in Lompoc for a long, long time. I have kind of a housekeeping item that I'd like to bring to your attention. I was at the Planning Commission hearing on the general plan, and when I got to thinking after I got home about just exactly what judgments they made, what their votes were, I didn't have it clear in my mind. So I called and came down, and the planning people were very good talking with me, but they said that the minutes were not ready. This was several days after the meeting, and they would be ready in time for the next meeting. And it seems to me that doesn't give the citizens much chance to formulate their opinions and to make them known if they can't get hold of the minutes to be sure what happened at the last meeting. And I don't know whether this has been the policy. I don't remember any long delay like this, but I think it's worth looking at to be sure that that all the information is available to the people before an item actually comes to the council or to a commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Anyone else at this time? Seeing no one rise, we'll close oral communications. We'll move on to the consent calendar. There are 6 items tonight on the consent calendar. All are considered routine and are proposed for action by one motion. The 6 items are the minutes, and with respect to the last comment, I will mention that the minutes are not official minutes until they have been approved, which means the following meeting. We are approving tonight the minutes of our last 2 meetings of the City Council. That's when they're official, and that's when they're available for dissemination to the public. We will approve check registers for payroll, for vouchers, for refunds, and for other checks. We will approve, it's proposed to approve a resolution authorizing the city to apply for reimbursement for our program to collect and dispose of used oil. We're asked to approve agreements with the school district regarding the city use of the civic auditorium, the middle school, and the high school athletic facilities at off school hours. We're asked to consider and approve a change in the method of allocating of property tax by the County of Santa Barbara, and we're asked to approve the annual financial statements for the past 2 years. It should be noted that with respect to the final item, we have an independent auditor's report which did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls and reported no instances of noncompliance with audit practices. The only comment that the auditors made was that we possibly should have moved a little quicker on the financial report for a year ago, but we've had an unprecedented turnover in our management services and our financial department, and that's why we're dealing with two items tonight. That is the consent calendar. What is the wishes of the council on this item? Mr. Lingle?
Mr. Mayor, I did have questions on item number 5 on the consent calendar. I spoke to Mr. Wilkie today, and my questions were answered. However, since Mr. Schuyler has questions on it, it indicates to me that possibly other members of the community have questions, so I would like to pull item number 5 from the consent calendar.
Item 5 will be pulled. It'll be dealt with at the end of the meeting. It'll be added to the back end of the agenda. What are the wishes of the council with respect to the remaining items on that?
I move that we approve the consent calendar other than item number 5.
We have a motion.
I second.
And a second. Let's vote. That item passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing reducing the fare for Medicare card holders and disabled persons for the City of Lompoc Transit. Ms. Barcelona, I assume Mr. Fernbaugh make your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have a recommendation this evening to receive input and take public testimony and adopt Resolution 564510, which establishes a new fixed route half fare for Medicare card holders and disabled persons for City of Lompoc Transit. During the 2009 Federal Transit Administration review, the FDA audited our most recently adopted fares and found the fares for Medicare card holders and disabled persons exceeded the 50% requirement for single fare ride. Those regulations stipulate that we can charge no more than half the established regular single fare ride for those people. COLT's required to submit a corrective plan to the FDA, and the corrective action is a reduction in the single ride fare and the 10 ride punch pass for Medicare card holders and disabled persons. The current cost of the regular single ride fare is $1.25, and the 10 punch pass is $11.25. Staff proposes the half fare be reduced to 60 cents, a reduction of 15 cents per person, and the cost of the 10 ride punch pass be reduced to $5.60, a reduction of $1.15. Staff performed a 3-month survey of riders utilizing those fares and estimates the annual number of riders in this category is about 2,080. That reduction in the half fare single ride and 10 ride punch pass is estimated to decrease overall revenue by approximately $312 for the next fiscal year. Most Medicare cardholders and disabled persons utilize our ADA service, which is a curb-to-curb service, for which a charge of $1 is the fare. The proposed new fares would bring us into conformance with the current FTA requirements. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Fernbaugh. Are there any questions of the staff at this time? Being no lights, okay, sorry. Mr. Lingle?
Yes, Mr. Fernbaugh, I'm not recommending this. I just have a question. Since the fares, it needed to be a different, or no more than 50%, had we considered increasing the regular fee to $1.50, thereby making the 75-cent fare at the 50-cent level? Had we even considered that?
We did consider that briefly, but we thought at this time raising fares was not the direction to go. We will probably in the next year or so come back with a review of all our fares again, since we have not done that since 2008, and review all of them at that time.
Thank you. Like I said, I wasn't recommending it because I do agree with your recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fernbaugh. Are there any comments? Anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item?
Mayor and Council, Will Schuyler, resident of Lompoc. I read this, and first thing I thought it was kind of a fairness issue. I realize that most seniors probably go on Medicare, but there are probably some that don't, that have made arrangements for their own retirement and stuff, and they would be discriminated against. I know we get some federal monies. I don't know how that issue is being handled. And it's at 50%, and I did some of the math, and I'm sure there was some rounding off of figures to get, there's actually the rate if you went half would be 62.5 cents, or the 10 ticket would be $5.62.5. So just the only other is I know that we have what they call a fare box ratio, and of course I think the savings said it was $312, so it's probably not going to affect the ratio. Not, but I know we have taken some criticism on running the buses without, a lot of people on them. Some people have questioned the money. So the question I had is there a fairness issue? A lot of places you go in, they give you a senior citizen discount. They don't say if you're on this or that, we'll do this and this. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the issue before us? We'll bring it back. We'll close public comment period. We'll bring it back to the council. With respect to the last question, as I understand it, it's a federal regulation that says that the rates must be structured this way. Mr. Fernbaugh is nodding affirmative. So it's not up to us to sit here and try to determine what is fair and what isn't fair. It's us to comply with the federal regulation if we're going to continue to get federal money and be able to operate a transit system. Ms. Rouget.
I was happy to see a reduction in something in this world right now. So with that, I will go ahead and make the motion that we adopt Resolution 5645(10), which establishes a new fixed route half fare for Medicare card holders and disabled persons for the COLT system.
Thank you.
I second the motion.
We have a second. Mr. Durham.
I don't need to talk.
We have a motion before us. Let's cast our vote. And that item is unanimous. I'm going to take the next item, but after item 8, before we go into the appeal, we will take a 10-minute break, so that if you're looking for an opportunity to get up and stretch your legs, and those up here on the council that started at 6 o'clock know that we're counting down. Ms. Barcelona, Planning Commission recommendation. To introduce your.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Manager Lucille Breeze will present on the next public hearing item, City Council consideration of a Planning Commission recommendation for a text amendment to the city's zoning ordinance.
Thank you. I welcome Ms. Breeze.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the public. The Planning Commission held a meeting on June the 9th and was able to review a text amendment to our existing zoning ordinance, which would allow the public a conditional use permit in the industrial area, and it would expand the tasting rooms for the winery operations. There are a number of wineries that are limited by the 15% requirement that currently exists in our code, and we have had requests to expand that allowance so that there could be a larger portion of their existing facility that is dedicated to wine tasting. And with a conditional use permit, each specific winery would be able to come before the Planning Commission and present their case, and the Planning Commission could evaluate the specific request and place any required conditions of approval on the project. The wine industry has been supportive of this particular text amendment, as has the Chamber, and we feel that it will be a great economic benefit to wineries within the city. The recommendation is for the Council to receive and review the Planning Commission recommendation, to hold the public hearing, to adopt the negative declaration prepared for the text amendment, and direct staff to file a notice of determination, to waive further reading and introduce ordinance number 1564, parens 10, approving text amendment TA 1001, amending the city zoning ordinance. And that completes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? Ms. Mardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question regarding this item, and that is, we're allowing the wine, the wine facilities that are presently in the location to have tasting rooms that might occupy bigger than 15% of what they have as far as the retail is right?
That's a proposed text amendment.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, is that also include any form of food service, or is it just strictly wine tasting? And I want to know whether there is something specific written in here that it only allows wine being served and not food, or vice versa.
Each application would contain whatever components that winery wanted to come forward with, and the Planning Commission would review if, as part of wine tasting, a specific winery would like to have a deli and have some simple food service that would complement the wine, or a wine tasting event, or some sort of specific type of proposal in that manner, the Planning Commission would review that and place conditions upon it.
So it's basically on a case-by-case basis?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
No other questions at this time. We'll open the comments to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak the item before us?
Mr. Mayor and Council, Dwayne Holmdahl, I've made all the other meetings. I thought one thing about it, if you have a project, think it's going to go through, a lot of people don't show up thinking it's going to happen. But it will, but I don't see too many from the winery. I had several call me and said they couldn't make it today, but this project is going through. It's a good one, and it goes back to the history of it. Is when we started, it was wineries coming in, and there was also extra room to do their tasting rooms. Now we have tasting rooms wanting to come in, and they are. And there should be probably 4 to 5 before the summer is over with this new ordinance that you're working on, and it works out good. If you have a chance on a weekend or such to go down to the ghetto in that area, You got people from all over Southern California in there. You just walk into any one of the tasting rooms there now. So people are coming in. There's also some new advertising going into the LA area, Orange County, Simi Valley, and et cetera, that are bringing people up here. When they come up here, they use hotels, they use restaurants, and they use other things while they're here. So this is a real good thing that's coming through. The Planning Commission looked at it, went through a couple good times, and the industry is really for it. So it's a plus for the city of Lompoc. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmdahl. If there are any other speakers, if you could, again, prepare to step into the lectern as soon as Mr. Sabani finishes, we won't have this big gap between speakers.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, in the interest of time, I'm not going to repeat what I presented to you last time when we had the meeting. Suffice to say that your unanimous approval to proceed with the project was a motivation for many wineries to file application in Lompoc for a wine tasting room. Presently, we have about 5 additional winemakers. They're from other area. They're submitting application to see if they could open up a wine tasting room. So I think this is going to be very helpful to the industry, and is a complement to the to our development in this area, and it's creating job and opportunity in addition to all these things. And the answer to your question, yes, there are few wine tasting rooms would like to introduce a sort of not elaborate deli, something that most of these people are coming from Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, a different area, and they're hungry as well as they taste wine. So having a simple deli might help. And I think Lucille answered the question appropriately, and these people will not do it without permit from the city and approval of the Planning Commission. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sabani. No one else wanted to speak on this item. We'll close public comment period, bring it back to the council. What are the wishes of the council? Mr. Lingle.
I move that we approve staff recommendations on the item.
I second.
We have a motion and second. Anyone want to speak to or oppose against? Okay, let's vote. That item passes unanimously. As I said before, we're going to take about a 10-minute break before we move into the hearing on the senior assisted living project. So let's try to be back here at 20 after. Item number 9 is an appeal of a decision by the Planning Commission. Ms. Barcelona.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this public hearing item will be presented by Principal Planner Keith Newbert, an appeal submitted by Shellen Miller of Pacific West Communities, Inc., the applicant of the Planning Commission determination, June 9th, 2010.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and the public this evening. This item before you is an appeal submitted by Shellen Miller of Pacific West Communities, Incorporated, the applicant of the Planning Commission determination of June 9th, 2010. The Planning Commission denied modifications to an approved conditional use permit, CUP 0805, for construction of the Cypress Court development consisting of 60 affordable apartment units for seniors and persons with disabilities and approximately 14,493 square feet of commercial space at 1420 East Ocean Avenue. Staff's recommendation for approval was based on the technical merits of the project. And since the staff report was written, correspondence was received from Ms. Ortiz, Mr. Burgess, Mr. Todd, and also CHC. And the correspondence was distributed to the City Council. You should have a copy of that this evening. And this correspondence was also made available to the public. The recommendation this evening is to hold the public hearing, consider the material presented in the staff report, and to take one of the following actions. One, to grant the appeal and approve the proposed modifications to conditional use permit CUP 0805 by adopting resolution number 5654, parens 10, approving modifications to conditional use permit CUP 0805, including a 21% density bonus, and resolution number 5655, parens 10, approving vesting tentative parcel map LOM 586P, or to uphold the Planning Commission decision of June 9th, 2010, and deny the project modifications by directing staff to prepare and return with a resolution delineating its findings. Or finally, to provide alternative direction to staff. And this does conclude my staff report, and I will be available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Newbert. Are there any questions at this time of staff? Before we open the meeting to comments from the public, I'd like to start first by asking the appellant if they would like to present their appeal verbally. But even before they do that, I'm going to comment and I'm going to ask the city attorney to keep me honest on this. But when we go into a hearing, which is a quasi-judicial hearing, it's an appeal of a decision that's made by the Planning Commission. Our rules of procedure are a little bit different than they would be for other public hearing items. And as I understand it, the appellant, the people that have a right to, just like a jury trial, they have a right to know all of the information that we consider when we make our decision. So if we've been out personally inspecting the property, if we've had private discussions, I think we're supposed to disclose them. If we've gone and obtained any evidence ourselves that we're going to base our decision on tonight, we should disclose that information at this time. I will say that I've received the 4 emails and letters that Mr. Newbert mentioned. They were submitted to all members of the council. If I remember correctly, there were 2 opposed and 2 supporting the project there. I did go out again and drive around the area to look at it, to be able to put it into perspective if we get into discussion of the project. I was here the night that the Planning Commission acted, sitting by myself and observed. And I was here for another item that was later on that evening, but so many people wanted to talk to me about the action the Planning Commission took that I left before the other items of the evening were dealt with. And that's been pretty much the extent of any personal investigation or discussion. Now, let me start down at this end. You've been off for a month, so I'm going this way now. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also received the stated correspondences, and Dr. Burgess called me, and we spoke on the phone about the issue. So I have had a conversation with Dr. Burgess.
Mr. J.
I also received the written letters and emails. I listened to Dr. Burgess. That was the extent of the conversation. I didn't say anything back, just listened. And then also I got an email from the Area Agency on Aging supporting the project.
Ms. Martner.
I received all the emails that the rest of the council received. I have really not talked to anybody about the project with the exception of the staff and legal counsel.
And Mr. Durham.
Ditto.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I suggest that the council make a motion and a second and adopt a motion adding to the record, the official record, all the documents that you just referred to?
We have a motion, a recommendation for a motion to add to the record.
I'll move that all the documentation gets added on into the record.
Okay, let's vote on that motion right now. Without discussion. And that passes, okay. We will not use the clock for the appellant. They've paid cash money with their appeal to us, and we'll let them present their case tonight, so we won't turn the clock on, but we will use the clock and the timer for public comments after that. Ms. Miller.
Thank you. All right, and for the record, my name is Shellen Miller. I'm the project manager with Pacific West Communities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the council for hearing our appeal, and thank you for allowing me just over 5 minutes for my introduction, and then I'll introduce the rest of our development team. But if you recall, I was here presenting the same project, Cypress Court, which is a mixed-use affordable housing development for seniors, this past May, just over a month ago. And at that time, the council voted to reserve $1.8 million of local financing to the project, and that was a combination of redevelopment agency funds and city home funds. And that was because the project is a good one, and we're going in for financing here shortly, and we believe that the leverage showing the community support will help us move this project forward and bring high-quality, affordable housing to the community, along with some economic development. So the project team that we bring here tonight is Pacific West Communities. If you recall, I kind of went over this in May, but we are a full-service affordable housing developer and owner. We have over 80 projects in California, over 80 projects in the West, 30 of which are in California, and we kind of pride ourselves on developing what you see here today in our pretty pictures. We pride ourselves on developing that day one and having it look as nice in years 5, 10, and 30 down the road. We have the Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara here tonight. They are going to be our managing partner on the project, or one of their SURF, I think it's one of their nonprofit arms, is going to be the managing partner on the development. We have a long history with the Housing Authority, and we think they bring a lot of local knowledge to the team. And then Pikert Group Architects is an architect that has extensive experience in designing affordable multifamily housing, both with Pacific West Communities and the Housing Authority of the county, and also with other nonprofits. So we feel that we have a pretty strong team with our financing background, a great design background, and a wonderful management background. Next slide, please. So I got into this a little bit, but not only do we pride ourselves on building high-quality developments, we also think that forming strong partnerships with local nonprofits such as the Housing Authority, city jurisdictions such as yourselves, really make to a successful project. And when communities invest in our projects, we feel like they are more of a partner than just a lender. They're not just a Wells Fargo Bank or a Bank of America. They are a on-the-ground partner in the deal, and we feel that way here in the city. Like I said, we have a history of success. In 2008 and 2009, the Pacific companies had 14 low-income housing tax credit projects awarded and 12 home projects through the state of California. That's one of the most successful developers in the state, and it is especially worth noting, considering that 2008 and 2009 were some of the toughest economic years for finding investors to invest in these types of multifamily housing developments. So we are successful in that respect, and we hope that we can move forward tonight here with a great quality project. Next slide, please. So going into the project history, I'm going to ask Lisa Plowman, who's the planning manager with Pikert Group Architects, to tell you a little bit about how we've come to where we are today. And it has been a long haul, some of which I understand and some of which I don't, because Pacific companies have been involved in for the past 6 to 8 months, whereas the project has been around for much longer, as I understand. But I think that the project we have here today is a modification of the first project, which was also known as Ocean Plaza, which was a larger project, had more residential units and more commercial space. So we feel that we've modified the project in a way that better meets the community's needs, better meets the developers' needs and the needs of the state in getting those tax credits and those other financing sources awarded to the project. So here we go.
Thank you, Shellen. As Shellen noted, my name is Lisa Plowman. I'm with Piker Group Architects. I'm the planning manager there. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about the project history, the appeal, as well as the need for senior housing for low-income seniors in the community. And then I'm going to introduce Eddie Pikert, the principal architect with PGA, and he'll walk you through the project and the design. So I'm sure many of you are well acquainted with the history of this project, but Ocean Plaza project is the currently approved project for the site. It has 78 affordable senior units, a little over 13,000 square feet of commercial space mixed in with the residential element, and then a 4,200 roughly square foot commercial building that would be located at the corner. As you know, the Planning Commission in January 2009 recommended approval of the density bonus and the map, but denied the conditional use permit. That was appealed to the council, and the council took action in April of 2009 approving the conditional use permit for Ocean Plaza. And that approval has stood since that point in time, and in March of this year, Pacific West Communities joined the partnership, and an application to revise the approved project was submitted to the city. As Shellen also mentioned, in May of this year, the RDA Board of Directors awarded $1.8 million to finance this new revised project. We attended the Planning Commission in June, and the PC denied the revisions to the approved project. And then the applicant filed the appeal shortly thereafter. So the appeal, and I know you've received the letter from Barbara Macri-Ortiz. She's the attorney for the project, and she's outlined the basis for the appeal in great detail, and I'm going to summarize that tonight. First off, the denial by the Planning Commission violated the Government Code Section 65589.5, which is the Housing Accountability Act. The Housing Accountability Act really is there to provide guidance both for affordable housing providers as well as jurisdictions regarding when a particular project can be denied. There are specific findings that have to be made to deny a project, and the findings have to be supported by substantial evidence in the record. The denial is also inconsistent with the state density bonus law, which guarantees density bonus for projects as well as concessions and incentives, and I'll talk a little bit about that law later in the presentation. And lastly, the Planning Commission action was not supported by evidence in the record, and we'll talk about that in addition later in the presentation. So here are the 5 findings under the Housing Accountability Act. The first finding is that jurisdiction has an adopted housing element that's in compliance as determined by the state, and the RHNA allocation has been met. There's specific, or you can make a finding that there's specific adverse impact to public health and safety, or denial of the project is required to comply with a federal or state law, the project is on agriculturally zoned land, or is inconsistent with your general plan or zoning ordinance. So you have to be able to make one of those 5 findings to deny this type of project. I think as we'll walk through tonight, and as outlined in Ms. Macri-Ortiz's letter, we do not believe any of those findings can be made. Starting with finding 1, the City of Lompoc does not currently have an adopted housing element that's been accepted and been determined to be in compliance with the state Housing and Community Development Department. So this finding cannot be made. In addition, the Housing Accountability Act goes one step farther than housing element law in saying that you have to be able to approve these projects. Housing element law basically states that if you have enough zoning in place, then you've met your RHNA allocation. But this act ratchets that up another notch in stating that if you don't have those projects approved, then you cannot deny the project that's before you. Specific adverse impact to public health and safety. And as outlined in the planning staff report, there are no impacts associated with this project. In fact, a mitigated negative declaration was adopted for the original project, and it was found that this reduced project would also not have any significant impacts. The denial of the project is required by a federal or state law, and there are no known laws in place that would require that. The project is on land that's zoned for commercial development, is not on ag land. And lastly, the project is consistent with the general plan and zoning ordinance, as the site is zoned and planned for commercial uses, and a mixed-use project is allowed with a conditional use permit. So in summary, none of the 5 findings that are part of the Housing Accountability Act could be made to deny the project. With respect to the state density bonus law, again, this law is in place to provide assistance to affordable housing providers, as well as to ensure that affordable housing gets constructed within communities. And the law basically guarantees an increase in your density up to 35%, depending on the level of affordability that you provide in your project. It also guarantees concessions and incentives, which are essentially modifications to existing development standards that are in your code, something like building height or lot coverage or setbacks would be one of the concessions that would be allowed. And for a project of this type, which is 100% affordable, you are guaranteed 3 concessions. And then, as a final point to discussing state density bonus law, and as outlined in our attorney's letter, the Planning Commission's action to deny the project nullified the applicant's rights under this particular state law. The Planning Commission, at a subsequent hearing to the hearing on the item, adopted a resolution that made 3 findings to support the denial of their project, and we don't believe that the evidence in the record supports those findings. And I've summarized what those findings here on our slides. In particular, finding A essentially said that the site was not adequate in size to accommodate the use, in that the location of the loading zone for parking was not accessible to Building 1. Well, initially, I think you have to make the determination that the project's consistent with the general plan and zoning ordinance, which staff has already done in their staff report. The site is adequate in size to accommodate the project, as they meet all of the zoning standards. And there's no distance requirement contained in the zoning ordinance with respect to the loading zone. So that's a matter of opinion as to whether or not the loading zone is close enough to Building 1 or not. Finding B basically states that the site's not adequate in size to accommodate the use, in that the length of the parking stalls provided on the adjacent parcel, there's a limited number of those parking stalls, that they don't meet the city design standards for safety. So the bulk of the parking on the project site meets the length requirement, which was 20 and a half feet, essentially. The city staff reviewed and supported the proposed reduction in the stall length. We're providing 18 and a half feet rather than the 20 and a half, because the width of the adjacent parcel, and we'll show you that on our site plan, is not wide enough to actually provide 2 rows of parking and a drive aisle, with providing 20 and a half foot long parking stalls. But the reduced length does not produce a public health and safety impact. I know the engineer reviewed the proposal to modify that standard, but it's also good to note that other jurisdictions within Santa Barbara County also allow for, or their requirements are less than the 20 and a half feet. Santa Barbara County and Buellton are 16 and a half feet, and Carpinteria is 18 feet. The third finding and last finding that was made was that the project had an adverse effect on the adjacent land uses, and that the project site is near an entry gateway and is not appropriate location for this a project of this type and intensity. And I think that's really a baseless finding. The project has no significant adverse public health and safety impact. It has no environmental impacts that can't be mitigated. It meets the zoning ordinance requirements with respect to open space, landscaping, lot coverage, and height, which means that the site is adequate in size to accommodate a project of this size, bulk, and scale. And then the comment that the project's not appropriate for the gateway is really baseless. We don't understand where that came from, frankly, and it does raise questions about fair housing concerns. In fact, we believe that this project will actually really improve that corner as you enter in. Right now, I think you have a gas station and a tire store, and this project will actually, I think, be a very nice addition, and there's a low-profile project or building proposed for that corner. And I think it will be a really beautiful project and improve the local neighborhood. So I want to talk just a little bit about the senior housing needs in the community, and I think many of you have seen presentations on this, and I'll go through this quickly. So Lompoc's, all senior housing is based on demographics, essentially. And the number of seniors have increased, obviously, since the 2000 census, and those that were aged 45 to 54 are now considered seniors in your community. The seniors all over the country and in the world are living longer because we're healthier, which means there's more demand for housing as people get older. And it's also true that many of the seniors, if you're healthy, they want to maintain their independence for as long as possible, but may need some assistance or may need some social activities. And so living with other seniors in an independent living facility is a really great option for them, particularly those that are of low income. So in summary, the demand for the senior housing in this community as well as the state has been increasing over time. This graph just gives you an idea of where that increase is. In 2009 is the red bar, so you can see the increase from 1999 to 2009 for various age groups. So this is 55 to 59, 60 to 64, 65 to 74, 75 to 84, and 85 and up. Just to give you a little more data, 831 more senior households have been identified in the last 10 years. 185 of those are renters, and 89 of those are low income. So they're below 60% of area median income. A similar age progression is expected for the next 10 years as well, meaning that you'll have more seniors coming in the community who will be needing housing. And 249 low-income seniors will need housing on an annual basis by 2012. Disabled seniors are also increasing in numbers as well and need housing. In the 2000 census, there's over 2,000 disabled seniors in the city. Just over 500 of them are renters, and about half of those are low income. There are another 110 disabled seniors identified in the 2000 census between the ages of 55 and 64, and 100% qualify as low income. So essentially, we have 356 low-income disabled seniors that need housing in the community. And again, the demand will increase in the next 10 years as it has in the last 10. The project also includes some expanded services for the disabled in that it's fully accessible to all those in wheelchairs. It provides direct access to transit as well as areas for pickup for van transit. And then the services that are provided on site include a common kitchen facility, recreational and fitness facilities, and social activities, which are really important as people age. They need to be meeting people of their own age and socializing and staying active. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Denny Pikert, and he'll talk to you about the project and the design.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be here to be presenting the project tonight, and particularly to be working with Pacific West Communities. They're really an exemplary developer of this type of housing. So I'd like to just kind of walk you through some of the design features. I know that you're all already familiar with the site, and its location is shown up in the map on the slide up. And then here are some photographs of the site that just show views looking from different directions. Top one looking from the south, and then a view looking east at 7th Street, etc. You can see that it's a generally level site. Obviously vacant. And these are some views just again from different locations. That's a view from the intersection kind of looking down onto towards Ocean Avenue, and then looking through the site, and then view from the southwest. So just some general statistics. The site consists of 2.28 acres. The zoning's commercial. The general plan designation is office commercial. Of course, the site is vacant, and as I pointed out, and as you saw in the photographs, the site is generally level. So I'd like to just describe for you now the revised project. And one of the first things I'll point out is that a portion of what was part of the previous project, a piece of property approximately 18,000 square feet, has been eliminated and removed from the project. We have preserved the easement across that property. We've eliminated the parking garage, this partially underground below-grade parking garage, and we've reduced the number of residential units from 79 to 60 units, significantly reducing the overall size of the project. We've taken out and separated the commercial uses that were previously part of the main building in the currently approved project, and we've taken that, extracted that from the residential portion and created a separate building that forms one side of the courtyard that I'll show you in the site plan. The senior facility now is about 60,000, just over 60,000 square feet, and then the office building portion is about 12,000. That was the part that was taken out of the existing, or out of the previous project, and put into a separate building. And then the small commercial building at the corner of Ocean 7th is now 2,500 square feet versus 4,200 square feet. Just one last point there. We've added some additional parking, or we're planning to add, in the process of negotiating for some additional parking to be located on the adjacent veterinary hospital property. So what are the results of these revisions? Well, the removal of the parking garage has significantly reduced the cost of the project and really improved its competitiveness for the tax credit funding that is so critical to the success of the project. We've broken up the massing of the building in, I think, a very positive way. We've got more on-grade open space. Some of the open space previously was on top of the parking garage. This gives us more ability to get larger specimen trees and landscaping, etc. Increase the overall landscaping. We're talking about working on the additional parking in the adjacent parcel. And we've actually increased the size of the apartments to a modest degree. So the general description of the project as it stands before you tonight is that it is a state density bonus project, as has been pointed out. 60 residential apartments, 54 one-bedroom units that are 577 square feet versus previously 550, and 6 two-bedroom apartments at 918 square feet that were previously, I think, around 875. And they all have full kitchens. The project is affordable to 100% affordable to low-income seniors. The rents will be up to 60% of the area median income, $37,320 a year for a two-person family. And there will be an on-site residential manager. And the project contains a number of amenities. It has a spacious community room and lounges in various levels of the building, common dining room area, a kitchen, a community kitchen at the ground level, laundry facilities for the residents, and then it has a 5,600 square foot central courtyard in the center of the building. The commercial uses are 14,493 square feet, and that includes the two buildings, building 1 at 2,500 square feet and building 3 at 11,993 square feet. So this is the view of the site as it fits into the existing surroundings. And then this is a comparison of the previous site plan. And you can see that the building here is significantly bigger, and it had this large parking structure nestled into the grade here. And here we've reconfigured the building, taken the commercial component out of the main building and placing it in this smaller building adjacent to the residential building and forming one side of the courtyard. And then building 1 over here. So this is a larger scale view of the site. Over here, I'm just going to kind of point out a few of the specific features. This is the 20-foot wide access easement that provides access to Cypress Avenue, and that's an easement over this portion of the property that was in the original project but is no longer part of the project before you tonight. And then we essentially have an L-shaped building. This is a residential building with a central courtyard that is formed by the addition of this 12,000 square foot commercial building. And you received a letter from CHC, and we've had conversations with them as to their interest in potentially being the tenant in that building. And then over here you see the 2,500 square foot commercial building that was reduced somewhat from the previous size. And then over here you see the parking that is in the process of being negotiated with the neighboring property owner. And this parking would be shared between the two buildings and would provide adequate parking for both of those buildings. And then over here, once again, this is very similar to the original project, an L-shaped parking lot that provides parking for the residents and the staff. And then there's a kind of an incursion into part of this courtyard with some additional parking over here. And over here we've got a number of handicap spaces that provide access kind of to the main entrance for the public here. And of course the residents will be using these walkways to enter the building from the central courtyard generally. So again, the statistics, lot coverage is about 32,000 square feet, which is 32% of the site. For the buildings, the parking is about 33,000 square feet, about 34%. And then the hardscape, which are the walkways and patio areas in the courtyard, et cetera, consists of about 10% of the site at 9,600 square feet. And then the landscape is 24,000 square feet. That's about 24%. And when you add the two together, the open space that is formed by both the hardscape and the landscape actually comes out to about 34% of the site, which is a very significant number for landscape in a project like this. Parking, we have one space more than what's required by ordinance, with 97 spaces provided, 96 required. And then the off-site parking on the neighboring property is in the process of being negotiated with the owner. We're planning to improve the parking lot and pave it as part of that negotiation. There'll be through access provided for the vet office to go through the parking lot and onto a portion of the Ocean Plaza property to provide that access. And then we've talked about the change in the length from 20.5 to 18 feet, which is pretty much a standard in most of the jurisdictions that we work with. 18 feet, 18-foot stalls are a standard that we find is usually applicable in other jurisdictions, et cetera. So just walk through some features of the design. Here you see the north elevation, which shows the two-story commercial building that has been taken out of what was in the previous project, incorporated into the building, and now it's a separate building here facing the entry drive and parking area. And then this is the sort of main public entrance to the residential facility here with this little porch element in front, and then the building behind, that's a three-story building. And then here you see the south elevation, which is along a view from Cypress. And you can see we've incorporated a lot of the elements of the original design, but actually I think we've improved on them and paid more attention to fine detail. And I think we've really crafted something that will be a very beautiful and attractive building for the city when it's completed. And here we see the east elevation along 7th, where the grade rises up and wraps around on Cypress over here. And again, we see the same sort of gabled features and awnings and articulation of the windows and ground level with some arch elements. And so we have a kind of a generally described as a craftsman, kind of an eclectic craftsman style, not unlike the Garden Court senior facility that has won many design awards, and one that I've shown to this council and at other hearings. And then this is the small commercial building in a somewhat different style. It's a kind of more eclectic, contemporary style commercial building that distinguishes it somewhat from the residential building. So then if you see the full east elevation here, you see the small commercial building I just described, and then the 3-story residential building as you go further up 7th Street here. So that concludes my part of the presentation. Again, I just emphasize we put a lot of care into the design of this building, worked very closely with all the consultants and particularly Pacific West Communities to craft a building that will meet the needs of the residents in every conceivable way, and to really do a project that I think the city will be proud of when we finally bring it to fruition. So Shellen will come back up and conclude.
All right. So just in conclusion here, I wanted to kind of talk about the project as a whole and go over some of the things we've just been discussing in detail. The revised Cypress Court project includes a number of modifications that we think makes it a better project overall. The massing is broken up and reduced. The on-grade open space is greatly increased up to almost 34%, is what Daddy just explained. That includes landscaping. The additional parking on the vet parcel is being worked through, and the residential unit sizes have increased to help seniors find that comfortable spot as they age in place. Overall, the benefits, the high-quality housing is important in any community, especially in one that has the need for this type of housing for folks in the income band, under 60% of the area median income. It meets the general plan requirements, serving seniors and disabled citizens to low and very low income ranges, and it's a high-density land use category. It's also in the redevelopment agency, which is why we requested one of the reasons why we requested the redevelopment funds, and I think it will help revitalize this part of the neighborhood. Overall, the Cypress Court project broadens the housing choices that seniors in this community will have and fulfills the need for that housing. It's close to a number of community facilities and transit options. We talked about putting in a new bus pull-out right on 7th Street adjacent to our development. It enhances and revitalizes this neighborhood, as I discussed. And there's also a real economic benefit to these types of projects. It creates long and short-term jobs, increases the tax revenues to the city. Also, the impact fees and building permit fees for this particular project, we're estimating at about $500,000 for the residential portion, and additional fees totaling an estimation of $800,000 completely. And that's including the waivers that the City Council has currently resolved, which is the street and signal waiver. I believe that's through March of this year, or March of 2011. This is just a quick spreadsheet that I've found sometimes is helpful for folks to understand when we talk about economic development and what the economic stimulus of a tax credit project brings to a community. This is done on a national scale. It's from the National Association of Home Builders, so you take it for a grain of salt. But what it's showing here, the first phase, the construction phase, is that, say, first 12 months during construction, and the second phase is this ongoing annual effect that occurs while these new units are occupied. So for the next, 30 some odd years until it's then, renovated and kind of the construction goes over again. But essentially what this is showing is that the total local income brought into a community in the first year of construction is, and this is for a 60-unit project, just to be clear, is about $4.3 million. Of that, about $1 million of it goes to local business owners' incomes, and that's in spending money at hotels and food services and renting equipment, all that sort of stuff. $3.3 million of it goes to local wages and salaries, and these are the taxes generated, which in theory can support approximately 89 jobs in year one. Now that's a national standard. It's a couple years old, but it's a good one to keep in mind as you think about what this new development brings to the city. The ongoing effect, it's decreased over time, but as you see, the total local income of folks living, staying, and being able to age in place in Lompoc and continuing to shop at the local grocery stores and, buy gas locally and all those things, it brings in a local income of about $1.3 million. The local business owner's income at about $560,000. Local wages and salaries about $750,000, and about $200,000 of local taxes there, supporting approximately 22 local jobs. So it's just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind as to what this really means from a pragmatic economic perspective. So I think we've made a decent project, the 79 or 78 unit project, better by making it fit in better with the community. We're proposing to provide affordable housing to those folks who need it most. We're fulfilling and meeting state law with the density bonus, and it provides those economic benefits I just discussed. So the requested action that we have here tonight is for the council to uphold the appeal. Planning Commission findings were not supported by evidence. The Planning Commission action is inconsistent with the state density bonus law and the Housing Accountability Act. Thank you. So we hope that you will approve the revised conditional use permit and allow for the reduced length of the parking stalls in front of commercial building 1, and approve the revised vesting tentative parcel map, and approve the requested density bonus. And so I think in the real conclusion to our presentation, we're going to have the Housing Authority's Executive Director, Fred Lamont, talk a little bit about the relationship that we've had to date.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I will be very brief. You've seen this picture before. Last fall, when we brought the listing of properties to the Housing Authority and asked for your approval of 55-unit development, which we are constructing adjacent to our headquarters on West Ocean Avenue, we showed you this picture of what we had done in Santa Maria, an award-winning project that received national recognition. It's just off of Main Street. I guess you could call that kind of a gateway. If you're driving south on the 101, just before you get to Main Street, you cannot miss this project. This is what it was supposed to look like. And lest I press the wrong button, these are some shots of what it looked like when it was completed. Now, why am I showing you a project that's not part of what you're seeing tonight? Because you're seeing the same team. Pacific West Communities, Pikert Group Architects, and the Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara created this project in Santa Maria. We can do the same thing with this project in Lompoc. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll bring this back to the council. Mr. Newbert, do you have anything further that you want to present? Are there any questions or comments of the council at this time of the applicants?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question that is basically a curiosity question, and that is the rental value of this project versus the previous project. Do you have any information on that?
The total development cost of the project that we're proposing tonight is around $13 million. The total development cost of the project that was previously proposed was greater. The difference was closer to 20 to 21 million. The difference is that the $13 million is for the residential portion of the building, and that doesn't include the construction of the commercial buildings because we've separated them out. So from a financial perspective and the ability to move to get the main financing done for the affordability piece, we've removed the commercial buildings so that the costs can be clearly separated. So the total project cost of the CUP is about the same. It would be less because there's 18 less units and 4,000 square feet less of commercial. But the way that we can go in for financing from the affordability standpoint, we have a much stronger project because we've decreased our affordability financing costs, if that makes sense.
I'm trying to understand that, and I guess I believe you in what you're telling me. Okay. And then one last thing is the maintenance of the property, the long-term maintenance. Is there some common fees or something like that come into place when renters live there?
Yeah, renters don't pay the fees. It's part of our operating budget.
Okay, so you do have an operating budget that you will have some level of maintenance in the long term, not just the first year or the second year.
No, absolutely. These types of projects, we're committed to these projects for 55 years. That's the length of time that they need to remain affordable. So we know essentially that our rents are going to be capped for the next 55 years. And in doing so, we need to make sure that we're using high quality, very durable products in the construction, and then having the ability to maintain those buildings and those interior spaces throughout time, i.e. new carpets in year 5 or 10, updating things as we move forward, landscaping weekly or biweekly, however it works out, sprinklers, all that stuff. So that's all in our operating budget. We have a long success of doing projects, that maintain those types of things and have that operating budget kind of figured out on a per unit basis.
Okay, thank you very much.
Question?
One thing you forgot to mention in this whole thing is you're across the street from our brand new hospital, which I think is a plus. Are you going to make any accommodation to help those senior citizens get from, their apartments across that street to the hospital when they have to go? Or are there any things you've thought of that would help that situation?
That's a good point. And you reminded me of something else I forgot about. This is a letter of support that I just received, so I would like to pass it out to the council if that's appropriate this time. There should be enough for everyone. That is from a medical center that is hoping to maybe go into Building 1, which is the building closest to the corner. And then you also saw the CHC is interested in Building 2. So it shows that there will likely be a medical presence in this area, which we think is a good synergy with the hospital. So folks, the hope is that folks living here and in Casa Serena, which is right next door, will have access to multiple medical facilities in the area. The hospital, the brand new hospital, which is beautiful, and then the proposed commercial spaces on area. So to answer your question about transit, there's this pullout that we're proposing on 7th Street, and we haven't gotten to the point of having a transit that goes directly there, but I believe there's dial-a-ride through the Colt system, which would all of our residents would be eligible for. And the way dial-a-ride typically works is that you call up within a half an hour, when your appointment is, and you get picked up door-to-door service. So I think that would be very helpful and very convenient for residents. Thanks for pointing it out.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, thank you. We'll open for public comment. If there are any that would like to speak on the issue before us, please observe the time limit that we'll have with the 5 minutes, the green, yellow, red light.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Ralph Harmon. I think the applicant here did a nice job of mudding up the waters, because you're here to look at what the Planning Commission did, not the entire project as a whole. So let's go back to that for a moment. One of the things was the loading zone distance that was referred to. Unfortunately, the appellant did not point that out on the diagram, but I believe it is still basically where it was on the old project, which is quite a distance from the small building on the corner. And I think what the Planning Commission was thinking at this time, what they thought before, was that if you're going to be loading and unloading to that small commercial building on the corner, that was quite a distance. And what would happen is the trucks would really stop on 7th Street right in the middle of the road there and cause congestion. So I can understand why they would be interested in turning it down on that basis. As far as the parking stalls not being long enough, I don't really care what County of Santa Barbara does or what Carpinteria does. We have the ruling here in Lompoc, and you either go by that or you don't. We don't just change parking stalls for this development and that development. We laid it out, and that's what we have. If you can't deal with it, then you need to redesign your project. Speaking of the parking, when this thing was originally proposed with the underground parking, the developer at that time said, oh, this is why we want this, is to provide security for our tenants. They can come in, park, and go up. And now we said, oh, no, we don't need that security. We're going to let them park all over the place because we'll save money. That's interesting. Okay. So when you get back to what the Planning Commission did, I think you need to uphold their decision. They took a lot of time. They looked at it. They went into detail on it. And they dealt with the rules and regulations that we have in effect at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon.
John Lynn, City of Lompoc. First, I'd like to say I think this is a much improved project from the one before, but we still have the same, policy issue, philosophical issue. It depends on how you want to look at it. It boils down to, shall applicants turned down by the Planning Commission be encouraged to modify their proposal, as we've done in the past? I think Seabreeze is a good example, perhaps the hospital. I'm sure there are many more. Or shall we encourage applicants to bring their lawyers and come to the council and appeal? I don't think we should. Many years ago, I talked with someone who had been to Planning Commission school, and we talked about a number of issues, and just so I could understand what they went through. And one of the things that they pointed out that stuck in my mind and didn't apply at the time was that a dysfunctional arrangement is when a council routinely overturns a planning commission, and that was not the case back then, but it just stuck in the back of my mind all this time. Now remember, this is not about senior housing, but there are vacant senior facilities in Lompoc. It's not about what the staff said, because the staff simply provides information to the planning commission or to the council. It's not about the parking agreement that hasn't been signed yet, and I'm sure it will be. It's not about whether this is appropriate for a commercial office zone. I think it's kind of a reach and probably should have been mixed use. It's not about any of those things. It's simply about supporting the planning commissions and asking this applicant and future applicants to modify their project to resolve planning commission concerns as we have done in the past. I think we sent the hospital back 3 times. I think we sent Seabreeze back 4 or 5 times. And if we did a little looking and everybody who's been on the council a long time thought about it, I think there are many others. So are we going to set a new policy or are we not? That's the decision. Thank you.
Mr. Lynn.
Arlen Seacrest, Mayor, Council. Parking. I see that they have diagonal parking and straight in. The straight in is terrible for seniors. They need that 20 foot, probably extra width. And if they've got a pickup like I have, that's really going to be tough going in that little parking place and backing around in there when you're a senior and your neck stiff and all that. So that's what I would be looking at as my objection to the thing. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Joyce Howerton, Lompoc. I'm here to support the project. I have sat through many meetings on this project and have seen the changes, and I think it's very exciting. I like what they've done, but mostly I like the fact that it will be affordable housing for seniors. I work countywide on housing issues, and we have a real problem in this county, and we have a problem in this city. We have a problem with seniors finding affordable, safe, quality housing, and this project offers that. It goes in an area which is now a big vacant lot, very unattractive, oftentimes with garbage in the lot, and we're going to put a quality housing project in there. I've been to the Ted Zinich Gardens in Santa Maria, and I have to tell you, I would move in there in a heartbeat. They're beautiful. They have such a nice layout and a feel, so you don't think about this is low income or this is affordable. You just think, this is really nice. I could live here. And so I think we need to, all of a sudden, in this town, start supporting our seniors and start supporting people that need quality housing. I just had a conversation with my father, and he's going to turn 100 in September. And he said to me, you know, I could move into that project. He currently lives in his own home, but he thinks when he gets older, he's going to have to live where there are more people. And so he's saying, you know, tell the council to get off their duff and pass this because I'm looking for a place to move. So I would say to you, there's a lot of seniors like that out there that are looking for a place to move where they can feel safe, where they can have social lives, and most importantly, where they can live in a nice environment. So I encourage you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howerton.
Good evening, Mayor Zeminski and City Council. I'm Robin Hayhurst. I'm from Orchid. I'm Executive Director of the Santa Maria Valley Contractors Association, and I followed this for several years with great interest for a number of reasons. I have to back Joyce up on the fact that I just came back from taking care of my brother, who's a disabled senior. He's not able to drive anymore. In fact, he won't be with us a whole lot longer. But while I was in Northern California, I drove past a couple of Pacific West projects and that are maybe 15 years old, and they're in extraordinary shape still. Not only that, and I digress from my brother because I do have to say, in his current condition, if he had a place like this, we know our only option is to put him into some kind of convalescent care, and he's pretty young for that. But if he had a situation like this, he could be more autonomous. This is a very low rent facility, and she didn't review that with you very much today, but it's very, very reasonable, much less than anything else of this caliber that a person ordinarily would have the option of using. I do have to say that Pacific West is so great to work with. Right now in Santa Maria, their Rancho Hermosa project is going out to bid. It's a very similar project to this one, not the one that was mentioned to you earlier, but a brand new facility. And I met with their corporate general contractor today in our plan room at the Contractors Association, and most Lompoc contractors are members of the Santa Maria Valley Contractors Association since we absorbed Lompoc Contractors Association in 1994. They have met with us. They've put the plans in our plan room. They are accepting bids from local contractors on this job. They've made that commitment. And when people walk into my office and meet with me like they did today, that's very reassuring to know that we will have local contractors on this job. Shalyn really didn't even talk to you about the multiplier effect, and I'm sure you're probably all aware of it, but in construction it's generally 3 times the cost of the project. If you do add back the commercial property, you're looking at a very, about $60 million of impact onto the city of Lompoc in the economic development range. I would comment about the difference between elected officials and appointed officials. There's a big difference. Some of you that know me know that I've spent a lot of time with elected officials in several counties and on a state level. And there's a big difference. And I've also sat through an awful lot of planning commission meetings in a lot of municipalities and in several counties. They're all different. There's some subtext on this particular piece of property, whether we want to talk about it or not, that really emotionally drives things, because people can look at the facts of something, but even as elected, you know this, emotionally, whatever your core values are, or your prejudices about the project, do come into play. Talking about the loading aspects and something where we've got 2 committed medical entities that'll go in. Medically, how much delivery is there to a medical facility? Really not a lot. I really think you guys have to, look into your hearts as elected officials representing people and know that you have a lot more responsibility than any appointed person that you've appointed to act for you has. They make recommendations to you. Overall, this is an amazing project. I'm so excited that Pacific West has stepped forward to bring this to Lompoc, and I hope that will please approve it. Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bess Christensen, and I live in Lompoc, and I'm a very old senior. And this young lady was quite right about the subtext underlying this hearing. If you had been at the Planning Commission, you would not have heard any justification from two of the people who voted no on the project. They just said no. And I felt that we were owed an explanation, and we didn't get it. The third member did say no because she had the parking thing in mind. Those of you who came to these meetings the last time we had this project will remember how hateful they were. The expressions about, we don't need more poor people in Lompoc. We got enough poor people. We'd be a mecca for poor people, for poor seniors. And it got pretty ugly. So now the tone has changed. We're just concerned about parking. And I don't think parking is a reason to turn this down. When you get to be pretty old, you drive very, very little. And these people are not going to have RVs or extra vehicles or anything. They're just going to need something to get them back and forth once in a while. So I hope you'll approve it. I really think it would be a great asset to Lompoc, and it would give a comfortable home to a good many old people who need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. Seeing no one else rise, we'll close public comment period. We'll bring you back to the council now. Are there any questions that the council members may have based on what they've heard up to now? Mrs. Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We heard from the appellants regarding the legal parameters that will help us make a decision, and I would like our legal counsel to comment on that.
Through the chair, this is one of those situations where the state has indicated a policy for the state that all cities have to follow. And that policy that they've set is to do what the city can to assist lower income households and to assist seniors. The project that's before you, that's being proposed, meets the criteria that the state has established for a city to use when determining whether or not to approve a project of this nature. Being your legal counsel, if a determination is made by the city council to disapprove this project, what we need to do is have a discussion of the specific facts that you believe are in existence that would allow us then as staff to come back to you with a resolution that would be supported by those facts. And again, just so that I'm clear with my advice to you, I am not aware of the facts, but I don't know all the facts. You would know more facts than I do, so there may be some facts that I'm missing. But as I see the whole project and the parameters, I'm not aware of facts to support the findings that you would need to make, or even one of the findings that you need to make to deny this project. Added to that, the context of this approval, or this project, is even a little bit more problematic, using that word slightly. The council has already approved a project that is for this type of use, and this type of use, both the senior and the commercial. The current project is smaller than the project was approved. So that only adds to the level of difficulty it will be for the council to make findings that don't support a smaller project when they already made a decision. Maybe it wasn't the five of you, but someone made a decision, city council made a decision to say a project that was bigger than this already met the state requirements.
That answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Lingle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Pannoni. You are correct. City Council did approve a larger project, and you also stated that it was not this City Council. It was a different group of people. That being said, I am very concerned for the seniors, the low-income seniors, the disabled seniors. And because I'm concerned, I believe that there is one of the items, and it is item number 2. It is the public health and safety standards that I'm very concerned about. In our general plan in the traffic study, it indicated that that intersection, the intersection of 7th and Ocean, at that time was the second busiest intersection in the city. It also went on to say once the new hospital was built, it would very possibly become the busiest intersection. Well, the new hospital has been built, and on top of that, we have added wine tasting facilities to that intersection. Just tonight, we added more wine tasting to that intersection. That intersection is, if not right now, will soon become the busiest intersection in this community. The seniors on this location, there's really no place that I can see that they're going to go. There's no park available. There is a park about 3 blocks up 7th Street, but I don't know of any seniors, including myself, that want to trudge up that hill. It's a very steep incline. The traffic going in and out of that location is going to be very dangerous, especially if they exit or enter on 7th Street. You've got that huge hill. I live in that area. I am very concerned when I come up Cypress Avenue, turning left on 7th Street. You cannot see a car coming over 7th Street, over that hill. And they come at a very rapid pace, a very high speed. I am fearful that we are going to have very serious instances happening there. Ocean Avenue, going in and out, very busy. Coming in and out, I don't know, they'd be coming out, the traffic signal's there. They're going to have to wait till the traffic signal turns green to get rid of the traffic, and they'll have a very short period of time. So based on this, I believe that we should we should uphold the Planning Commission's degree based on public safety standards. I just think it's a beautiful project. It's a beautiful project, and I think any community would be happy to have it. But it's not the right location for it. I believe that it's going to be very dangerous for seniors. It's going to be very dangerous for the traffic coming in around. The average person is going to be having to avoid not only the seniors, but the commercial projects coming out of there. I just think adding this to that intersection, which is right now the second and I'm sure soon to become the busiest intersection, is a disaster waiting to happen. So I am going to encourage the council, based on public safety, to uphold the Planning Commission's recommendation, and I will actually make that motion unless anyone else has anything to say.
Have a motion. Tony, we have a motion. Is there a second for the motion?
Not yet.
That motion dies for lack of a second. Tony, do you have something you want to add? Comment?
Well, I agree with Mr. Lingle. I have some concerns about it. Maybe it's just 37 years in law enforcement. The biggest problem I have with the facility, the two biggest problems I have, is parking is a problem. You've got 28 spaces that are entirely, totally, not anywhere near the living facility for the seniors. You have 60 units, correct? Look at your own diagram. You've got 10 spaces on the west side. You've got 11 spaces on the north side. And just on the other side of the interior parking lot, there are 9 spaces. The remaining 28 spaces for parking are over on the far northwest area. You want to address that? And then I'll continue. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Durham, those 28 spaces are not for any of the residential portions of the project. In fact, half of those spaces would actually be for the veterinarian use. In fact, more than half. Only 8 spaces.
Well, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you. You had a diagram. Yeah. Show the diagram that indicated the 3 buildings. The veterinarian building is next to ocean. I'm talking about the interior part of the project. Is that still what you're talking about?
I'm not sure. Are you talking about where are you talking? Could you?
From here over to space 60.
These spaces?
All up to that point. And then you have the remaining parking spot. But from here across and into here, 28 spaces from there to 60 or away from the facility. Does that help you?
Well, it doesn't create any particular problem that I am understanding.
Well, you're not 75 years old.
Yeah. There's a sidewalk here. There are adequate spaces for the residential portion of the development, and access provided in various locations to get into the residential building.
I agree you have the parking spaces. I don't have a problem with the parking spaces. I'm talking about seniors.
Only 39 spaces are required for the senior facility, if you'll read the staff report.
So you're not allowing the seniors to have a vehicle? That's part of the requirement?
No, that's part of the code that the city has adopted to date. We're meeting and exceeding the parking requirements that are required based on 1- and 2-bedroom units. But I also want to just point out, because I'm scared that we're getting a little off track, in that this development is available for folks ages 55 and over. So you're right, we're not 75 or 85 and walking, but not everybody in this development is going to be disabled and 90 or 100 years old.
Okay, but you've already indicated that only 29 of the 60 are going to be allowed to have a vehicle.
Sorry.
The standards in the code are based on common usage, basically. So you look at the Institute of Transportation Engineers manuals, and they tell you, on average, how many parking spaces are needed for senior facilities. And that's based on research all across the country. And then that demand is identified in your zoning ordinance. So your zoning ordinance basically says that only 39 spaces are required for a senior facility of this nature, and that's based on the fact that low-income seniors oftentimes don't have a car.
Okay.
So we're meeting the demand that is estimated by a national organization as well as your zoning ordinance.
Okay, then why did we have to shorten the parking spaces if we...
Yeah, so I understand that question. The parcel that the additional parking is provided for, and that is for building 1 only. So the 2,500 square foot building that's on the corner needed some additional parking, and not all of it, just 8 spaces. And the lot that it is provided on is narrower than you would need by 4 feet to meet the parking stall width, and that's the explanation of why you would need a reduced parking stall length.
But if I understand it right, you're in communication trying to negotiate more parking from the veterinarian, correct?
This is the part. See right here, if you look at the pointer,
correct.
That's the parking that we're negotiating right now. It's a condition of approval on the project that this parking has to be provided in order to allow the construction of that building 1. So if this parking isn't provided, then building 1 would not be constructed. So it only serves that particular building. The rest of the parking and the vet clinic as well. And the vet clinic. And that's part of the negotiation, is that the Pacific West would build out that parking for the vet.
Okay, now during the, and pardon me if I don't know who stated it, but one of your crew stated that you're looking at possibly making an outlet or a drive-through in the veterinarians onto Ocean?
No, actually what it is, it's allowing the users of the clinic, so the patients or the owners of the patients, to drive through the vet's property this direction and come out on 7th Street. So it's providing an easement for the benefit of the vet clinic.
Okay, so you're not planning on opening it up?
No.
Good.
No.
Okay, my last concern, as far as it goes, is the parking, the loading zone area. As I see it, you've got 2 commercial facilities, 1 loading zone, and the 1 loading zone
right here.
Is up. Correct.
Yeah, so it's
right behind the veterinarian building. Is that it?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So now I agree. There's not going to be a lot of deliveries to a doctor's office if that's in fact is what goes in building 1. But I have concerns because truck drivers now will come in on Ocean and stop in the number 2 lane and just turn their flashers on and walk off and start making their deliveries. That's a traffic hazard. You place that hazard in and around the seniors, now we have people that are going to be confused.
Sure, I understand your point. And I think what we could do as an option is potentially create an additional loading zone. Sorry, Deddy, what? Yeah, we can work with staff to resolve it, but there could be a loading zone placed closer to building 1, and so you could ultimately have 2 loading zones if the council really felt that that was a primary concern. I feel that this loading zone would be adequate and people would be able to get the basic standard office deliveries over to this building, but again, an area within this landscaped area might be able to be provided to address your concerns.
I think that would be great. Also,
make that a condition of the project if you wanted.
You know, I'm new to this position, so what is affordable? Nobody can give me an answer. Nobody can give me a figure. What is affordable?
Sure. I mean, Shellen can speak to that, but the state identifies income levels in which you have to provide housing at those income levels. So it basically tells you if you're 60% of your area median income or lower, that you are a low-income individual. If you're 60%, if you're above that, you're either low. I'm sorry, 60% or lower is very low. 60% to 80 is low. 80 and above is moderate. And so the state comes up with those numbers for you based on your area median income.
Have you looked into what that's going to be?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then we have a slide on it that shows you what the average income is for 2 people, and I believe it's...
Yeah, the 3-tier slide that you had.
Here it is right here. Here it is right here. So for a 2-person family, somebody making 60% of the area median income would be $37,000 roughly.
Okay, and their rent would be?
Shellen can answer that.
On the unit size, but
correct.
For example, we spoke to the rents. They range from the net rent after utilities are taken out ranges from $366 a month to $941 a month, and that is based on income. So, for example, in this, what we're proposing is we have 6 units, Right. We have 6 units at 30% AMI, which is half, essentially, of that $37,000 a year. So that's for the very extremely low, is what 30% AMI was called. 12 units at 40% AMI, 24 units at 50% AMI, and 17 units at 60% AMI. So the 941 rent, which I mentioned, is the highest, and that's for a 60% unit, 2-bedroom.
Okay,
Does that
thank
help?
you. Yep, that's what I needed.
Okay. It's a confusing issue, but it's $366 to $940 based on different unit sizes and income levels.
Thank you. Now, I know there's been some words about our planning commission, but obviously you feel that you've even come back with a better project.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that I think the comment I heard tonight about being in front of planning commission, making, explaining what the primary concerns are and trying to make adjustments to them is a really great way to do business. We did not have that opportunity at planning commission. We presented our slideshow very briefly, and there was a no vote immediately. There was never any discussion, really, to explain to us what the primary concerns were. So this discussion here that we're having, I think, is really beneficial, and we can work on the loading zones and work with some of those things. But we didn't have that opportunity at planning commission.
Well, I apologize for that because you should have. Well, I'll wait. I see the lights are on. Thank you.
I'm going to bring it back. Normally I wait till the end, but we had a motion to support the Planning Commission that failed for lack of a second. I'm going to make a motion that we grant the appeal and we overturn the Planning Commission decision, and then we can discuss that motion, whether we want to support it or not support it, but at least it gives us a motion on the floor.
Okay, I'll second that, but I do think we need to discuss the loading.
I do want
I have
the
a couple
conditional,
other things to say, but
on the loading zone
But
for the.
I'll just second
I
the
don't want to
motion.
see vehicles parking on 7th. I don't care if it's for 5 minutes in a van.
No, I think that's a great concern. And as a developer, I want to do what works for our partners in the community on this. That's fantastic. I also want to add, I don't want to let a detail like a loading zone hold up as, what would bring a $20 million project into this community when our financing deadline, which I didn't talk about very well tonight, but our financing deadline is this month, tomorrow. So I'd like to get, this moving forward.
Well, I think it's a beautiful project, but that was my biggest concern, was the traffic and the congestion at that intersection, because I agree with Councilman Lingle. I'm only 61, and I don't like driving through there. So,
apartment?
You turned your.
They'd kick me out.
You turned your light off. I made the motion to approve. I'm not concerned with the traffic and with the traffic moving on to 7th Avenue. There are 2 accesses to that parking lot. If I lived there and I knew that in driving out on 7th Avenue, I would be faced with cars coming over the top of the hill and limited visibility, or driving out on Cypress and turning right and then turning right again to go up to Ocean Avenue, I think I know which one I would choose very quickly. No.
No, come on.
I don't see it as a major traffic hazard in order to turn this project down. I think the people will use. Common sense would tell me to use Cypress Avenue exit, turn right on 5th, turn right in on Ocean or left where there's a traffic light, and not face that 7th Avenue intersection. So I made the motion to approve. For a couple reasons. I think that this is a very good project. I think it fulfills a need. I think it's a beautiful design and will be attractive at the gateway to the community. It looks like it will be built to last. I don't find enough value in the objections that are presented to want to turn the project down. I'll add to that the reputation of the developers appears to be very good. The other projects, and I think that that's a big plus. And finally, I think the economic benefit to the community, with permanent jobs, with temporary jobs during construction warrant our moving ahead. I'm confident that I would expect that the loading zone will be looked at. It will be some time before there's an approval of that second building. That's not that's not the principal thing we're looking at tonight, and that will go through an approval process also.
Mr. Mayor, it is.
Pardon?
Mr. Mayor, it is a principal part because it's on the diagram, it's on the proposal. So for you to say that it's not an integral part, well, it is.
Well, so is a veterinary clinic, Tony, which is neither.
But the nice thing about it is you've already indicated that you would look into it and handle it. So
I'd like to see an approval tonight because we've already pushed these people close to a deadline in their ability to obtain the financing and the tax credits. I'm confident that the little things like that can be worked out by the developers and planning staff with minor changes in the loading zone. And I would just as soon not in any way try to delay them any further for the moving ahead of their project. So I encourage you to vote for the motion that's on the floor. It's unconditional. Ms. Martin?
Councilmember Rouget had the light on first.
Yes. Well, I voted for the project, what was that, almost a year ago, and I still support it. I like this one better. It's smaller, and I think it fits that lot better. But I do support senior housing, and I think it's a beautiful project. I just wanted to clarify something about the parking spaces. Isn't it only 16 spaces you're talking about making shorter?
I think it's 20.
Oh.
It's just those diagonal spots.
Yeah. Well, okay, I thought it was 16.
And only a portion of those 8 really would be used for building 1, and the remaining of them will be used, for the vet site or whatever business is on the vet site in the future.
Right.
With the potential of using those 8 parking spots after hours or whatever, shared parking. So.
Yeah. So it's giving people heartburn, and I think they need to realize that just a few of them are going to be shorter. Now, if you have a small car like I do, and somebody pulls in next to you, say at Vaughn's parking lot, and there's 20 feet, and they have this humongous truck, you still can't see around them anyway. So I don't see why that is the big issue to stop this. I was I was at the Planning Commission meeting also, and I do agree with Ms. Christensen. It was very quick and not much discussion and no valid reasons given to turn the project down. I didn't think, because after being a planning commissioner for 6 years, you have to have a darn good reason for turning a project down and be able to support it with fact. But that's neither here nor there. So I do support the project, and maybe a CUP or a condition of approval about the loading zone.
Ms. Pointer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Councilmember Rouget as well. I did vote for the previous project for the Ocean Plaza. I think this project does the same thing, a need that we have in this community. Furthermore, I have heard the council members, and I still don't find any facts or findings that would make me not grant this appeal. And it is not that we are inviting developers to come in with threatening proposals with lawyers. It is actually something that we as elected officials have to do. We have to go by the law. And the law says that there is really, at this point in time, there is no facts that we can deny this project. So I will support granting the appeal.
Mr. Lingle.
How about the fact that you can almost be guaranteed that there are going to be accidents at that intersection? We are obligated to approve or deny this project based on the law. The law does allow us to deny this project, uphold Planning Commission for public safety standards. This is a public safety standard. Mr. Mayor, you would turn right on Cypress, I guarantee you that people will turn left. And coming down 7th Street, that is a terrible place for anyone to be pulling out on. If this is approved, which I hope it isn't, if it is approved, I would recommend that there be a right turn only sign coming out of that location onto Cypress, because people will turn left and they will be turning onto 7th Street and there will be accidents there. So we don't have any facts. There are facts that that is a very busy intersection, and we're going to have a large number of people pulling in and out of there. There are facts, and I hope everyone has a good, hearty conscience, because when those accidents occur, anyway, I'm going to be opposed to this project.
No other lights lit?
Mr. Mayor, may I, just for the record, this is my city attorney talking now.
Good.
It would be unfortunate for the city in the future to have a record that is left with the idea that the city is potentially approving something that's unsafe. And so without trying to contradict comments that council members made, I just want to put on the record that there was an initial study that was done, and there was a mitigated negative declaration that was done on the project, and that mitigated negative declaration showed that there are no adverse impacts from this project.
Mr. Pannoni, I'll also add that the previous use there was a bowling alley. People were in there bowling late at night and having alcoholic beverages, and they were going out, and I don't remember a serious accident by anybody turning out of that parking lot onto to 7th Avenue. But
Mr. Mayor, obviously you weren't at the post-prom party at the bowling alley where a young lady was almost killed pulling out of that parking lot. But I understand what you're saying, but I'm happy with what you're saying also. I'm in favor of the program. I am. I just want to make sure that we have adequate.
With all due respect to Mr. Pannoni, that negative MDMD was approved prior to the additional wine tasting facilities at that location and prior to the opening of the new hospital. It was approved before those two instances. Things have changed. I believe if they did that study today, it'd be different circumstances. So again, I'm sticking with my original idea that we should be able to deny this based on public safety.
okay, we've a motion on the floor. Let's cast our vote. Passes 4-1. You said tomorrow is the deadline for your financing? Get out of here. Go start preparing your papers. Item 10 on the new business is to amend a resolution regarding the Measure A maintenance of effort value. Ms. Barcelona.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Assistant Public Works Director, City Engineer Kevin McCune will present the report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council members, and the public. As a result of the passage of Measure A by voters in 2008, the local sales tax throughout Santa Barbara County continued to include a 1/2 cent portion dedicated to transportation uses. The Measure A transportation sales tax succeeds the Measure D transportation sales tax, and the Measure A tax began April 1st of this year and is to remain in effect for 30 years. The Measure A ordinance adopted by the City Council and approved by the voters requires local agencies to annually maintain an expenditure of non-measure local discretionary funds for street and road purposes, which is no less than that reported in the State Controller's annual Streets and Roads report for fiscal year 07-08, or the previous 3-year average, whichever is smaller. The purpose of this is to ensure that the MOE requirements. The purpose of this is to ensure that the transportation sales tax add to and not replace existing general fund transportation improvements. This is called a maintenance of effort, or an MOE requirement. The MOE requirements are common strings attached to transportation revenues, and the Measure D program contained a similar MOE requirement, as does Proposition 42 funding that comes from the state of California. If an agency fails to meet the MOE requirements, they will not be eligible to receive their full share of Measure A funding. And the estimated Measure A apportionment for the City of Lompoc in 2010-11 is $1.886 million. Before SBCAG can allocate Measure A revenues to the City of Lompoc, the City Council must certify that it will include in its budget sufficient funds to meet the maintenance of effort requirement. Now, as I said earlier, the Measure A ordinance requires local agencies to maintain an expenditure of non-measure local discretionary funds for street and road purposes, which is no less than that reported in the State Controller's report for 0708. The City of Lompoc's discretionary figure reported in 0708 and included in Resolution 5627, approved on April 20th, was $390,518. However, the city was recently notified by SBCAG that this reported 0708 discretionary number was unusually low and may be an error. After researching the issue, the finance director found that some expenditures were misreported and not as non-discretionary on the controller's report in 0708, and routine yearly expenditures for such items as street sweeping, street lighting, clearing vegetation from power lines have historically been reported as discretionary, but in that 1 year, 0708, they were categorized as non-discretionary. So after making the necessary reporting corrections for 0708, the average of the 3 fiscal years between 0506 and 0708 was determined to be the smaller discretionary amount compared with the 1 year amount reported in 0708. Therefore, the corrected MOE value for 2010-11 should be $1,531,412 based on a 3-year average. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 5656, which amends Resolution 5627, with a new maintenance of effort of $1,531,412. The revised MOE value will bring the city into conformance with Measure A requirements. And that concludes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions at this time? No questions. Let me at this time ask if there's any comments from the public on the item before us. This is understood here a lot better than it was at SBCAG. But I'm happy for that. What's the wishes? Bringing closing public comment period. What's the wishes of the council on the item before us? Mr. Durham.
Mr. Mayor, I recommend that we accept the staff's recommendations on the resolution just based on the very last sentence. Simply, I mean, it's a no-brainer. In order for us to be in compliance, we have to have this. So I make the motion that we accept it.
I'll second it.
We have a motion before us. Anybody want to comment? Seeing none, let's cast our vote. That passes unanimously. Item number 11, approval of the resolution declaring the intent to conduct a public hearing to declare a public nuisance. Ms. Barcelona.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Manager Lucille Breeze will present this report.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members, members of the public. This is an approval of a resolution declaring the intent to declare a public nuisance at 409 South C Street. Code enforcement on this particular property has been going on since approximately June of 2009. Planning Division staff has sent 4 letters to the property owner, and the City Attorney's Office has sent 1 letter. The property has been posted, and the weeds have definitely been a problem. They were cleared at one time, but they have grown again. And we are requesting that the council approve resolution number 5658, parens 10, declaring the intent to conduct a public hearing to declare a public nuisance and to authorize the notice of a public hearing to be held on August 3rd, 2010. And that completes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Breeze at this time? Mr. Lingle.
Ms. Breeze, the 4 letters that were sent,
Yes, sir.
do you have the dates that they were sent?
I do. The original complaint was received 6/5, just for reference. The first letter was sent on 6/19/2009, the second on 7/15/2009, the third on 9/25/2009, and the fourth on 3/16/2010. The fifth letter that was sent by the City Attorney's Office went on 6/15/2010.
Okay. And what's our normal procedure? I mean, I'm looking at this. I complained about this property several months ago. When we say the weeds are excessive, that's not even near describing. These weeds are 5 to 6 feet tall in this yard. The neighbor there, she has to put up with rotting fruit, and she can't even open up her doors in the summertime because flies and everything are swarming around. So what's our normal procedure? Is 1 year, is this a normal procedure to get this abated? It seems like it's taken way too long.
Generally, what we do is attempt to work with the property owner. And after, there have been instances between the letters where we've had contact with the property owner, and the property owner has indicated that they would be maintaining the yards. In August of 2009, the weeds were knocked down, and on the front and side yards. So that resolved the problem until we did look at it again in September just to verify that the property was being maintained. It was not, and so we did send the third letter. Spoke with the property owner a number of times. Our procedure has always been to attempt to work with property owners to have voluntary compliance.
Can anyone argue the fact that this person was not working with the city? I mean, if anyone took a look at this property, I mean, I think it's the worst looking property. Well, we've got several, but this is near the worst looking property in our community. This person, I don't think this person was even attempting to work with the city. So, I mean, I'm definitely in favor of this. I'm going to be voting for this. But later on, I'm going to be requesting that the city administrator look at revising our policy on this to make it much more expedient, because taking a year to take care of this property just is beyond belief. But thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Mr. Durham.
I agree with Councilman Lingle. I don't know, because we talked about this at one of the other council meetings with is it Battalion Chief? Jeff States. Anyway, with the problems that we're having, and we keep sending out second, third, fourth. What happened to the third strike rule? I mean, and I don't agree with the annual. I mean, if you have a problem, if the mayor lived next door to me and he had a problem taking care of his yard, I'm not going to be happy to sit. I'm not going to be happy sitting there for a year looking at it before a letter's sent out. So I agree with Councilman Lingle that maybe we ought to revise the standard on how we communicate. I understand wanting to work with the citizens and the renters or whatever the case may be. I understand that. But after, being told twice to take care of the problem and it's not done, then we need to take action. And I would like to see it at least every 6 months. I mean, at least that would be a start instead of every 12.
Ms. Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. if I understand this correctly, I mean, we do have a policy for vacant property, and that is what the battalion chief was telling us in the last council. Now, this is an occupied property. This is a residential property. I am not quite aware exactly what the policy is on residential properties, but I do assume that we do have to contact the owners and give them a chance to comply. The question is, what is the length of compliance? And it's not something that we're going to resolve tonight, so what I would like to suggest is that this be part of the code enforcement team that we're working with that establishes some deadline to compliance for residential properties with abatement, whether it be 6 months or whatever, but it's just something that is an ongoing thing that I think needs to be looked in the term, in terms of the code enforcement.
Let me suggest that's not the item before us tonight. We're here to take action on a specific property, and I'm sure staff can come back to us. We've got an ongoing program of developing stronger code enforcement, stronger enforcement.
Understood.
And when we briefed that a couple of months ago, we heard that the policy was not to take things to the attorney to try to work them out. But I think we've all made it pretty clear that we want to get the legal action involved much earlier and enforce codes in the city to a stronger degree. So if we can. Is there any comments on the item before us tonight?
Well, may I speak,
yes,
please? We went through this with another property, 1128 North A, and tonight we just got a thing about the cost of the abatement. I hope it's not going to cost us $12,000 to get this property up in shape.
This property is in a different condition. The boarding up and that issue, which is an important component of that other fee, is not involved in this particular property because it is occupied.
So it's apples and oranges.
Correct.
Okay. So I won't talk about it.
Let me ask. That is not going to cost us $12,000. That's added to the property taxes.
That's correct. That's what happens.
So it
ultimately
costs the property owner, and the same thing with this. Okay. Mr. Durham.
I'll make a motion that we accept staff's...
We've got to go to public comment first.
We do?
We're trying to, yes.
So late, I thought that we already did that.
We'll open it now for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on the item before us? Seeing no one rise. Now, Mr. Durham.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I make a motion that we accept staff's... See, I knew they were with me on this.
Move second. No other comments. Let's vote. That one passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I would like to, respond to the expressed concerns and say that the, City Attorney's Office, in concert with our city departments who carry out code enforcement activities, have been working as a team, and we are looking at enhancing the code and expediting the activities for timely resolution on these cases.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is written communications. What
about number 5?
We're going to do that after at the end of the program, which is just before adjournment. Did we have any other written communications other than the ones that that we were talking about earlier? Oral communications, the last chance for public to speak. 2 minutes per person. If there's anyone who'd like to speak to us at this time. Seeing no one rise, that one closed. Council, Development Agency requests, comments, and meeting reports. Do we have any additional council requests? I have one meeting report. I did attend the American Public Power annual convention on the East Coast last week. Excellent presentation on a number of the environmental laws that are being proposed to carbon and clean air and so forth as it pertains to electricity. Hot as could be, and I guess it's back there too. Now, item 5 on the agenda.
I have a request.
You have it? Okay.
I'm sorry. just following up on what I'd said, and I understand Ms. Barcelona has a code enforcement team working on expediting the process, but I'm making a request that at a near future council meeting, you report back to the council on what the expedited process is going to be for making sure that private property is cleaned up in a timely manner. So, and I'll need a second on that.
I'll second that.
A second. We got a general concurrence. I think we don't need to question that one further. Okay. Now, item 5.
My reason for bringing item number 5 back was I had questions on it. I spoke to Mr. Wilkie earlier today. He answered my questions, but since Mr. Schuyler had questions, I believe that other community members would also have questions too. So I'd ask Mr. Wilkie to just do a brief presentation on that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Mayor, council members, audience, and viewers. One thing to follow up on the last item, it was mentioned that at the very end of an abatement process, a property would be lien for the value that the property owner has not paid. In our current method of being allocated property taxes, that lien would be paid to the city at the time that the owner paid that bill. They have 5 years to pay that. So even though we would get that money back, it could be up to 5 years later after we've expended the funds. By switching to the teeter plan, that the recommendation is before you, that those liens would be paid in the year that that assessment is placed in the property. So there'd be there's potentially a much more quicker turnaround for assessments that are done this way. So if we're expecting to do more code enforcement activities, we could see a better turnaround, having less money that's out the door and that revolving happening faster. In regards to the actual property taxes, the difference really is between getting paid when the assessed value is due versus being paid when the assessed value is paid by the property owner. And again, a property owner, if they're late, they can be as far late as 5 years, in which time the property is sold by the county for taxes. That's when we would get our money. Typically, it doesn't go that long because people don't want to lose their properties, but the time lag is what we're talking about here in getting the money in the year that is due or in the year that is paid, and it's really just a timing issue of when we get that payment. What we lose is any kind of penalties, the 10% penalties that if you don't pay your taxes on time. We lose that additional interest if those items are paid for over a year past when their due date is. What we gain is certainty on how much money we will be receiving. The other thing that we gain, and it's a one-time gain, is all the back taxes that are owed to the city are being held by the county in their teeter fund, not being distributed to us until those actual payments are made. So we have approximately $190,000 that would come to us in the next fiscal year in a time that's not necessarily the best economically. So we're giving up future revenues probably less than $15,000 a year by doing this change. And I hope that's enough. If there's questions, I can answer them. So.
Thank you. Mr. Lingle, what are your wishes with respect to the item?
I'd maybe open up to public comment, Mr. Schuyler, if you would.
Is there any other?
Mayor and Council, I thank you for doing that. I apologize for keeping you later. When I pulled up staff reports tonight, I said, well, I'll call Mr. Wookie on the phone, and called up and it says, this is the after hours operator, and I looked at my clock, and I started on this at 3 o'clock, but anyway. The question I had is, money's tight. I'm really wondering what the county's buying here. They wanted to give you $190,000. To me, when I was on the city council and we got these government grants and stuff, I always asked, where's the hook? What's the catch in this thing? Because people don't go around giving you money just because it's good. It's too good to be true, probably is. So my my question on the staff report was, what is the negative? And I think the negative, I guess, is we'd be giving up all future fines and penalties that would be collected on it. In other words, this money that they're going to give us would buy us approximately 13 years to get that back. Well, what happens on year 14 or 15? I mean, are we going to be spending money now that you know, might have said, excuse me, later on, well, geez, you know, we used to have $15,000 a year coming in on it. We're not getting that anymore. Do we have to subsidize it from someplace else? And that's basically my deal is what's the hook in this, if there is one, and to let you know that, if there isn't any, that this is really good. It says in the staff report there's 120 taxing agencies in Santa Barbara County, and there's only 5 that don't have this plan, so it must, must not be too bad. But I just was wondering, why they want to give us money now when money's so tight, and what are we giving up over the long run to get that money? Thank you.
Let me answer the way I understand that very quickly. If you owe me $100 and you pay it to me now, I don't have any right to any interest or fines or penalties for not getting the money. If the county gives me the money right now and then waits to collect it from you, and they collect it a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now, they're the ones that should get the fines. They're the ones that should get the interest, because I got my money right up front when we put it in. And it's just a matter of, am I right there that they'll keep the fine money, but we're getting paid immediately. So there is no reason for us to look for fines or interest on that money. Legal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, that's exactly the way I look at it. And one of my questions was, I mean, why didn't we do this years ago? It sounds like it should have been done years ago, but it's being done today. And with that, I would like to move that we approve staff recommendations on item number 5.
I'll second that motion.
A second? No other comments? Let's vote. That item passes. That's the last item before adjournment. There's no reason for us to stay here if there's no more items on the agenda. So we're adjourned.